My parents offered to babysit Emma and Jaden for our 10th anniversary dinner, and I should have known something was terribly wrong. They had never offered before, not once, in all these years since I married Marcus. But when my husband found their overnight bag in our hallway and opened it, his face went pale. "Keisha, get the kids," he said, his voice shaking. "Call 911 now." Inside were custody papers, forged documents, and plane tickets. My parents weren't here to babysit. They were here to steal my children. 3 days before our anniversary, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Seeing my mother's name on the screen made my stomach tighten. Barbara and Robert Madison rarely called, and when they did, our conversations lasted exactly long enough for them to remind me of all the ways I disappointed them. "Keisha, darling." My mother's voice was honey sweet, which immediately set off alarm bells. She never called me darling anymore, not since I'd married Marcus 12 years ago. "Hi, Mom, is everything okay?" "Of course, sweetheart. Actually, your father and I were talking, and we realized your anniversary is coming up. The big 10 years, isn't it?" I nearly dropped my coffee mug. How did she even remember our anniversary? She'd spent our wedding day sitting in the back row, with her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "Yes, it's this Saturday," I answered carefully. "Well, we'd like to offer to babysit Emma and Jaden for you. Give you and Marcus a proper night out." The silence stretched between us while I processed this impossible offer. My parents lived 3 hours away in their gated community, surrounding themselves with other wealthy retirees who shared their narrow views of what constituted a proper family. They'd made it abundantly clear that Marcus, a successful black engineer who'd grown up in foster care, would never be good enough for their daughter. Our biracial children were a source of barely concealed shame, for them acknowledged only with obligatory Christmas cards containing checks instead of love. "Mom, you've never offered to babysit before," I said slowly. "I know, and that's our fault entirely. Robert and I have been doing a lot of thinking lately. We're getting older, Keisha. We want to know our grandchildren before it's too late. We want to make things right." My throat felt tight. Despite everything, despite years of rejection and cutting remarks, some part of me still craved my parents' approval. That little girl who'd once performed piano recitals, hoping to see pride in their eyes, was still there waiting. "Let me talk to Marcus," I said. "Of course. We could drive up Saturday afternoon, stay overnight to help with Sunday morning, then head home. The children won't even have to miss their routines." After we hung up, I found Marcus in his home office already deep in blueprints for the new tech campus his firm was designing. He looked up when I entered, his brown eyes crinkling with the smile that had first captured my heart in college. "You won't believe who just called," I said, sinking into the chair across from his desk. His expression darkened as I recounted the conversation. Marcus had endured enough cold shoulders and pointed remarks from my parents to last a lifetime. But he also knew how much their rejection hurt me. "What do you think their angle is?" he asked, direct as always. "Maybe there isn't one. Maybe they really are trying to change." "Keisha, your mother asked if I was still working in construction at Emma's birthday party. I've been a lead engineer for 8 years. I know, but people can change, and the kids barely know them. Maybe this is a chance for everyone to start fresh." Marcus studied my face, reading the hope I couldn't quite hide. "If this is what you want, we'll try it. But the first sign of their usual behavior, and they're gone." I spent the rest of that day walking on air. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine holidays where my children had grandparents who loved them, where family photos included everyone, where my two worlds could finally merge. I called my mother back that evening to confirm, and she sounded genuinely pleased. "Wonderful. Now I'll need to know all about their schedules, of course. What time do they usually eat dinner? Any food allergies? Medications?" Normal grandparent questions, I told myself, even as she insisted on writing down every detail. "And Emma, is she still so thin, growing properly?" "She's perfectly healthy, Mom. The doctor says she's right on track." Of course. And Jaden, how are his special needs?" My jaw clenched. "He has mild autism, Mom. He's not broken. He's actually doing amazingly well in therapy." Oh, I didn't mean anything by it. I just want to be prepared. Does he have behavioral issues? Meltdowns? Violence? No, I said firmly. He's a sweet, sensitive boy who sometimes needs extra help processing sensory input. I'll write out his routine for you. Yes, please do. Very detailed instructions would be helpful. We want to do everything exactly right. Something in her tone nagged at me, but I pushed it aside. My parents had always been particular about details. That was just their way. Oh, one more thing, she added. Do they have any upcoming doctor's appointments or school events we should know about in case of emergency, you understand? Their schedules are on the fridge. I'll show you everything when you get here. Perfect, and Keisha, thank you for giving us this chance. You won't regret it. As I hung up, Marcus appeared in the doorway. How many questions did she ask? She's just being thorough. Thorough, he repeated. Your mother once asked me if I knew who my real father was at Thanksgiving dinner. That wasn't thorough. That was cruel. I know, but maybe becoming grandparents has softened them. Maybe they finally realize what they've been missing. Marcus pulled me into his arms. I hope you're right. For your sake, I really hope you're right. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me with those bright hazel eyes that were the perfect blend of Marcus and me. Are Grandma and Grandpa Madison really coming here? She asked. They are sweet pea. They want to spend time with you and Jaden while Daddy and I go out for our anniversary. Jaden said they don't like us because we're different. My heart cracked. That's not true, baby. Sometimes adults are complicated, but your grandparents love you. Then why don't they visit like Nana Rose does? Nana Rose was Marcus's foster mother who'd raised him from age 12 and treated our children like precious gifts. She drove 6 hours every other month just to spend weekends baking cookies and reading stories. They live farther away. I said the half-truth bitter on my tongue. But they're coming now, and that's what matters. Emma seemed to accept this snuggling deeper into her covers. But as I turned off her light, I caught her whispered words to her stuffed elephant. I hope they're nice this time. This time. My 8-year-old daughter had already learned to expect coldness from her grandparents. The weight of that realization followed me to my own bedroom where I found Marcus already in bed, scrolling through his phone. Look at this, he said, showing me his screen. Your mother just sent a friend request on Facebook. She's never had social media before. Maybe she wants to see more pictures of the kids. Maybe, but his tone suggested otherwise. I chose optimism. I chose hope. I chose to believe that my parents could change, that love could grow where only judgment had existed before. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I allowed myself to dream of the family I'd always wanted. If only I'd listened to the warning bells. If only I'd paid attention to the questions that probed just a little too deep, the interest that felt just a little too calculated. But hope is a powerful drug, especially when mixed with a daughter's eternal need for her parents' love. 3 days. I had 3 days before my entire world would shatter before I'd understand that sometimes the people who share your blood can become your greatest threat. 3 days before I'd learn that a parent's love could be twisted into something monstrous and that protecting your children sometimes means protecting them from your own family. But that night, I slept peacefully, unaware that my mother was 3 hours away, carefully noting every answer I'd given her in a leather-bound journal labeled Evidence. Friday morning arrived with spring sunshine and the chaos of getting 2 children ready for school. I moved through our morning routine on autopilot, my mind already racing with preparations for my parents' visit. The house needed to be spotless. Not just clean, but Madison-level immaculate, the kind of pristine environment where throw pillows remained perfectly fluffed and magazines fanned at precise angles. "Mommy, you're doing the thing," Emma observed over her bowl of cereal. "What thing?" "The cleaning thing where you look scared." Marcus caught my eye from across the kitchen. We'd been married long enough for entire conversations to pass in a glance. His said, "You don't have to prove anything to them." Mine replied, "Yes, I do." After dropping the kids at school, I attacked the house with military precision. Every surface gleamed, every toy found its designated place, every family photo was straightened to perfection. I even cleaned inside the kitchen drawers, knowing my mother's tendency to open cabinets under the pretense of helping. My phone rang as I was organizing the pantry, arranging cereal boxes by height, like some grocery store employee with OCD. It was my father, which was unusual. Robert Madison typically communicated through my mother, treating phone calls like board meetings that required an intermediary. Keisha. No greeting, just my name delivered in his crisp banker's voice. I need some information for our visit. Hi, Dad. What kind of information? Security details. Do you have an alarm system cameras? What about the locks? Are they deadbolts? I set down the box of crackers I'd been alphabetizing. Why do you need to know about our security? Simple precaution. We'll be responsible for the children. I need to ensure the house is properly secured. We have an alarm system and good locks. The neighborhood is very safe. What's the code? I'll show you how to use it when you get here. A pause. What about the children's documentation? Where do you keep their birth certificates, social security cards, in case of medical emergency? The questions felt invasive, but I reminded myself that my father had always been paranoid about safety. His house had more security than some banks. They're in our filing cabinet, but their insurance cards are in my wallet, and I'll leave those with you along with all the emergency numbers. Good. And their passports, do they have passports? Yes, but why would you need those for one evening? I don't need them. I'm simply being thorough. Your mother mentioned you traveled to Disney last year. International... No, just Florida. Dad, is everything okay? These questions seem what? His tone sharpened, reminding me of every time I disappointed him by getting an A- instead of an A. Nothing, just detailed. Details matter, Keisha. I thought Marcus would have taught you that being an engineer. There it was, the subtle dig, the implication that I needed my husband to teach me basic concepts. I gripped the phone tighter. Is there anything else you need to know? Your neighbors. Are you friendly with them? Do they watch the children sometimes? The Johnsons next door are great. They have kids the same age. And across the street. Dad, you're not conducting a background check on our entire neighborhood. Are you? He actually chuckled, a rare sound that somehow made me more uneasy. Of course not. Your mother is just anxious about the visit. She wants everything to go perfectly. After he hung up, I stood in my gleaming kitchen, surrounded by alphabetized soup cans and color-coordinated dish towels, and wondered why I felt like I'd just been interrogated. The feeling intensified when Marcus called during his lunch break. Something weird just happened, he said without preamble. I was grabbing coffee near Jaden's therapy center, and I could have sworn I saw your parents' car in the parking lot. That's impossible. They're 3 hours away. White Mercedes license plate REM 4237. I knew that plate number. Robert Edmund Madison, April 23rd, 1957. My father put his initials and birth date on everything. Maybe someone has the same car. Maybe. But Keisha, I walked closer to check, and there was someone in the driver's seat taking pictures of the building. Taking pictures? Why would... I don't know. By the time I got close enough to see clearly, they drove off. A chill ran through me despite the warm spring day. You think it was them? I think your parents are showing more interest in our lives than they have in the past decade, and it's making my spider sense tingle. Your spider sense is always tingling when it comes to my parents. And it's always been right. I couldn't argue with that. But what possible reason would they have for photographing Jaden's therapy center? The question nagged at me as I finished my manic cleaning, as I wrote out detailed instructions for the children's routines as I selected and reselected my outfit for tomorrow's anniversary dinner. That evening, while the kids played in the backyard, I opened my laptop to order a special dessert for tomorrow. My email was already open, and a new message caught my eye. The sender was a real estate website notification. Someone viewed your property estimate. Curious, I clicked through to the site. Our house had been viewed 17 times in the past week. The viewing history showed multiple searches for our exact address, all from the same IP location. When I checked the general area of the searches, my blood chilled. Fairfield County, where my parents lived. Marcus. I called, my voice steadier than I felt. Can you come look at this? He studied the screen, his jaw tightening with each click. They're researching our house value. Why would they care what our house is worth? Maybe they're just curious, they've never been here before. Keisha, they also looked at school ratings for our district. And check this out. He navigated to the search history. They viewed 3 different private schools in their area. So maybe they're thinking of moving. Marcus turned to face me fully. Or maybe they're researching schools for someone else, someone younger. The implication hung between us too terrible to voice. I shook my head. That's insane. You're suggesting my parents are planning to steal our children? They're snobs, not kidnappers. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just observing that your parents are showing an unusual interest in our assets, our security, our children's schedules and schools in their area. You're being paranoid. Am I? When has your mother ever cared about Jaden's therapy schedule? When has your father ever asked about our neighbors? They've spent 8 years pretending our family doesn't exist, and suddenly they're gathering intel like private investigators. I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because somewhere deep in my gut, beneath the layers of hope and denial, a small voice was screaming that something was terribly wrong. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's Mercedes. In that parking lot, saw my mother's name on those property searches, heard the calculating tone in their voices. By Saturday morning, I was exhausted and edgy, jumping at shadows. Maybe we should cancel, Marcus suggested as we dressed the kids for their Saturday morning activities. Tell them you're sick. And prove that we're the chaotic, unreliable family they think we are. No, we're doing this. Maybe we're wrong about everything. Maybe they really do just want to reconnect. Emma wandered into our bedroom, already dressed in her favorite purple dress. Mommy, I had a weird dream. What kind of dream, baby? Grandma and Grandpa took us on an airplane, but you and Daddy weren't there, and I kept asking where you were, but they wouldn't tell me. Marcus and I exchanged glances over her head. Even our 8-year-old's subconscious was picking up on the wrongness of this situation. It was just a dream, I assured her, smoothing her braids. Mommy and Daddy aren't going anywhere, and neither are you. But as I spoke the words, I made a mental note to hide our children's passports. Just in case. Just being thorough, as my father would say. The morning passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. I found myself adding extra locks to filing cabinets, password-protecting our computer, and gathering important documents into our bedroom safe. If Marcus noticed my sudden security consciousness, he didn't comment. At 2 o'clock, I received a text from my mother. On our way, can't wait to see everyone. 3 hours. In 3 hours, they would be here. In 3 hours, I would know whether I was being paranoid or perceptive. In 3 hours, the facade we'd all maintained for years would either crumble or transform into something real. I stood at my kitchen window watching my children play in the backyard. Emma was pushing Jaden on the swing, making sure not to go too high because she knew he got overwhelmed by too much sensory input. She protected him instinctively, this big sister, who understood that love meant accepting people exactly as they were. Something my parents had never learned. Hey, Marcus said softly, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Whatever happens, we protect them. That's all that matters. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm sabotaging the chance for our kids to have grandparents who love them? Then we'll be happily wrong. But Keisha, in 12 years, have your parents ever done anything that wasn't calculated to benefit them? The answer was no. Every gift came with strings. Every kindness had a price. Every interaction served their agenda. But children change people, I told myself. Grandchildren especially. Maybe Emma and Jaden had finally melted the ice around my parents' hearts. As I watched my daughter help her brother off the swing and lead him inside for his afternoon snack, I made a promise. Whatever my parents' intentions, I would not let them hurt my children. Not with coldness, not with judgment, and certainly not with whatever scheme they might be planning. 2 hours and 45 minutes later, a white Mercedes pulled into our driveway. I stood at the window, my heart hammering as I watched my parents emerge. They looked like catalog models for upscale retirement, living my mother in pressed linen pants and pearls, my father in khakis and a polo shirt that cost more than most people's car payments. But it was the way they studied our house that made my blood chill, like appraisers, like buyers, like people planning to take something that wasn't theirs. "They're here," I called to Marcus, my voice artificially bright. "Showtime," he murmured, squeezing my hand. As we walked to the door together, united in our wariness, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to let predators into our home. But they were my parents. Surely that counted for something. Surely. The doorbell rang at exactly 5 o'clock because Robert and Barbara Madison were nothing if not punctual. I smoothed my dress one final time, took a deep breath, and opened the door to find my parents standing on our porch like they were posing for a retirement community brochure. Keisha. My mother's embrace was stiff but lingered longer than usual. She smelled of Chanel No. 5 and something else I couldn't identify. Determination, maybe. "You look wonderful. Doesn't she look wonderful, Robert?" My father nodded curtly, his handshake with Marcus lasting exactly 2 seconds. "Marcus, I see you've kept the lawn maintained." "I do my best," Marcus replied evenly. In our private code, his tone meant counting down the minutes until they leave. They came bearing gifts which should have been my second warning. My parents didn't believe in spontaneous generosity. Every present had a purpose, every kindness a calculation. But here they were with professionally wrapped packages and practiced smiles. Where are our grandchildren? My mother's use of "our" made something twist in my stomach. "Emma Jaden, your grandparents are here," I called. Emma appeared first, approaching slowly like she was testing the temperature of cold water. My mother immediately pulled out her phone. "Oh, let me get a picture. Stand right there, sweetheart. No, a little to the left. The lighting is better." Flash, flash, flash. At least a dozen photos before Emma could even say hello properly. "Hi, Grandma," Emma said politely, the way she'd greet a teacher on the first day of school. "Hello, darling. My goodness, you've grown, though you're still quite petite, aren't you? Are you eating enough?" "I eat plenty," Emma replied, her little chin lifting. That's my girl, I thought. Jaden hung back in the hallway assessing the situation. He didn't like changes to routine, and my parents' rare visits always disrupted his sense of order. When he finally came forward, my father immediately extended his hand for a handshake. Jaden doesn't really like to shake hands. I started to explain, but my mother cut me off. Nonsense. A young man should know how to shake hands properly. Come here, Jaden. Mom, he has sensory issues with touching. I told you this. Yes, well, the world won't always accommodate his preferences, she said, still holding out her hand expectantly. Jaden, bless his heart, looked her dead in the eye and said, The world doesn't have to. That's what boundaries are for. Marcus coughed to cover what sounded suspiciously like a laugh. My mother's smile tightened. Of course. How very modern. She turned her attention to the wrapped boxes. Well, let's see how you like your presents. The gifts were expensive, naturally. A designer doll for Emma that looked more like a collector's item than a toy. A complicated electronic learning system for Jaden that seemed designed for a child twice his age. My parents had always given gifts that reflected who they wanted our children to be, rather than who they actually were. What do you say? I prompted gently. Thank you. Both children chorused dutifully. We'll play with them later, Emma added, which was her polite way of saying, we'll put these in the closet with all your other inappropriate gifts. Actually, my mother said, pulling out her phone again, let's get some pictures with your new toys. Robert, get the camera from the car, the good one. You brought a separate camera, Marcus asked. Oh, yes. Phone pictures are never quite good enough, are they? We want to capture every moment of this special visit. For the next 20 minutes, my parents directed our children like they were in a photo shoot. Stand here, hold this smile bigger, no, not that big, turn your head, fix your hair. Jaden started stimming with his hands, a sure sign of overwhelm. But when I tried to intervene, my mother waved me off. Just a few more, dear. We so rarely get to see them. And whose fault is that? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Silence descended like a curtain. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's smile became arctic. Well, she said slowly, that's exactly why we're here. To make amends, to be better grandparents. Isn't that right, Robert? Indeed. Speaking of which, Keisha, might I see your home office? Marcus mentioned you work from home now. I'm interested in your setup. It seemed an odd request, but I led him down the hall while my mother continued her photography session. My office was small but organized with pictures of the kids on my desk and their artwork covering one wall. My father studied everything with the intensity of a detective at a crime scene. He examined the locks on the windows, tested the sturdiness of my desk, even checked behind picture frames. Dad, what are you doing? Just observing. You can tell a lot about a person by their workspace. I see you keep important files in here. Most things are digital now. And the children, do they have access to this room? Of course. They like to draw while I work sometimes. He made a note in a small leather notebook he'd pulled from his pocket. An actual note. About my office. Dad, why are you taking notes? Habit, he said smoothly. From my banking days, I notice everything. Back in the living room, my mother had moved on to interviewing Emma about school. But interview was too gentle a word. It was more like a deposition. And your teacher, does she give you special attention? Extra help. I don't need extra help, Emma said. I'm in the advanced reading group. Of course you are, but surely with your situation, there must be challenges. What situation? Emma's voice had taken on the stubborn tone she'd inherited from me. Well-being, different. It must be difficult sometimes. Marcus stepped forward. Emma, why don't you show Grandma your science fair trophy? Oh, a trophy. My mother's enthusiasm seemed genuine for the first time. What did you win it for? I built a model showing how melanin works and why people have different skin colors, Emma said proudly. I wanted to show that being biracial isn't weird, it's just genetics. My mother's smile faltered. Oh, how educational. While they talked, I noticed my father had wandered off again. I found him in the kitchen examining our calendar on the fridge, taking pictures of it with his phone. Dad. Just impressed by how organized you are, he said without looking up. Jaden has therapy every Tuesday and Thursday. Yes, and that's private medical information. I'm his grandfather, Keisha, hardly a stranger. You've acted like one for 8 years. He finally looked at me then, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, regret. But it was gone so quickly, I might have imagined it. People change, he said simply. Barbara and I want to be part of their lives now. Why now? What's changed? We're getting older. Perspective shifts. Priorities change. It sounded rehearsed, like he was reading from a script titled Things to Say to Seem Genuine. Before I could probe further, we heard Jaden's raised voice from the living room. No, I said no. I rushed back to find my mother trying to touch Jaden's hair while he backed away, clearly distressed. I just wanted to feel if it's as soft as it looks, she was saying. Such an interesting texture. Mom, you don't touch people without permission, especially not Jaden. We've discussed this. I'm his grandmother. That doesn't give you the right to violate his boundaries. Marcus had already moved to comfort Jaden, who was now sitting in his favorite corner, rocking slightly. Emma stood between them and my mother like a tiny bodyguard. You made him upset, she announced. He doesn't like people touching his hair. Nobody does. Would you like it if someone just grabbed your hair? Well, my mother huffed. No, Emma agreed solemnly. You never do listen when we tell you things. The tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. This was going even worse than I'd feared. My parents had been here less than an hour and had already photographed everything, cataloged our schedules, invaded personal space, and insulted our children. "Perhaps," Marcus said in his "I'm being professional but I'm furious" voice, "we should go over the bedtime routines now, since Keisha and I need to leave for dinner soon." "Of course." My mother brightened immediately. "I've brought my notebook to write everything down." Another notebook. My parents, who had never shown interest in a single detail of our children's lives, were suddenly taking notes like anthropologists studying a newly discovered tribe. I walked them through the routines, trying to ignore how my mother recorded every word and my father photographed every relevant location. The bathroom where teeth were brushed, the kitchen where snacks were prepared, the playroom where quiet time happened. "And Jaden's weighted blanket," my mother asked. "Where do you keep that?" I frowned. "How do you know about his weighted blanket?" She paused, pen hovering over paper. "You must have mentioned it." "I've never mentioned it. We just got it last month." "Oh, well, I must have read about them online, for children with his condition." "He doesn't have a condition, Mom. He's autistic. It's a neurological difference, not a disease." Of course, I misspoke. But she hadn't misspoken. She'd revealed knowledge she shouldn't have. My eyes met Marcus's, and I saw my suspicion reflected there. "Excuse me," I said. "I need to finish getting ready." In our bedroom, I found Marcus already there, holding our children's passports. "I was going to put these in the safe," he said quietly. "But look." He showed me the inside pages. There were tiny pinholes in the corners, as if they'd been photocopied by someone who didn't know how to do it properly. When I whispered, "They've been in our filing cabinet. Your parents must have—" "During the photo session, or when Dad was wandering around." We stared at each other, the full horror of what was happening starting to dawn. "We can't leave them here with the kids," Marcus said. "We can't accuse them of whatever this is without proof. Keisha, they're casing our house. They're documenting everything. They know things they shouldn't know." A knock on the door interrupted us. "Keisha," my mother's voice. "I forgot to ask about medications. Does either child take anything regularly?" My hand was shaking as I opened the door. "No, Mom, they're both healthy." "No vitamins, no supplements, nothing for Jaden's challenges." "No." She made another note. "And you're sure sometimes parents forget to mention maintenance medications?" I think I'd remember if I was giving my children medication. "Of course, I'm just being thorough." She smiled that perfect hostess smile. "We want everything to go smoothly tonight and tomorrow." "Tomorrow? Well, we'll be here for breakfast, won't we? To help with the morning routine before we drive home?" I'd forgotten they planned to stay overnight. The thought of them in our house while we slept made my skin crawl. "About that," I started, but she was already heading back downstairs, calling cheerfully to the children. Marcus pulled me back into the room. "We're not leaving. Make an excuse. Food poisoning, migraine, anything. If we cancel now after they drove all this way, it confirms every negative thing they've ever thought about us." "I don't care what they think anymore. Something is very wrong here." He was right. Every instinct screamed danger. But as I looked at him, I saw past my wonderful protective husband to the 12-year-old boy who'd been failed by every adult in his life until Nana rose. He'd learned early that family could hurt. You betray you, abandon you. I'd been raised by wolves in sheep's clothing, but at least I'd had a roof over my head and food on the table. Marcus had survived actual abandonment. Were we really going to let our trauma make us paranoid? Were we going to deny our children the chance to have grandparents because we were scared? 1 hour, I said finally. "We'll go to dinner for 1 hour. The restaurant is 10 minutes away. We'll keep our phones on. First sign of trouble, we come home." Keisha. They're my parents, Marcus. With all their faults, all their prejudices, they're still my parents. They couldn't. But I couldn't finish the sentence, because the truth was I didn't know what they would or wouldn't do anymore. These people taking notes and photos, gathering information, and asking invasive questions, they weren't the cold but predictable parents I'd grown up with. They were strangers with familiar faces and unknown intentions. As we prepared to leave, I gave the children strict instructions. Stay together. Don't go anywhere with Grandma and Grandpa, not even to the store. Call us if anything feels wrong. Emma nodded seriously, while Jaden whispered all his important facts about foxes, his current special interest and comfort topic. And remember, I added, kissing both their heads, Mommy and Daddy will be back very soon. Promise, Emma asked. Promise. At the door, I turned back to see my parents standing in my living room, my mother's hand resting possessively on Emma's shoulder, my father typing something on his phone. They looked like a catalog family. Perfect. Posed. Wrong. Ready, Marcus asked, his hand finding mine. I wasn't. Every fiber of my being wanted to grab our children and run, but I nodded, smiled, and walked out the door. It would take exactly 43 minutes for me to realize this was the biggest mistake of my life. We made it exactly 1 block before I started hyperventilating. Turn around. I gasped my chest tight with an anxiety that had nothing to do with leaving the kids with babysitters and everything to do with which babysitters we'd left them with. Marcus was already pulling into the nearest parking lot. Thank God. I'd been white-knuckling the steering wheel since we pulled out. We're being ridiculous, I said, even as relief flooded through me. They're going to think we're crazy. I don't care what they think. Something's wrong, Keisha. My gut's never been wrong about danger, and right now it's screaming. We'd been gone less than 3 minutes, quick enough to play it off as forgetting something. My hands shook as I texted my mother, "Forgot my wallet, be right back." Her response came instantly. "Take your time, we're having a wonderful visit." The speed of her reply made my stomach clench. She'd been waiting for us to contact her, watching her phone. Why? Marcus drove back faster than was strictly legal, both of us leaning forward like we could will the car to move quicker. As we turned onto our street, everything looked normal. Our house sat quietly in the evening light, my parents' Mercedes in the driveway where they'd left it. Maybe we are being paranoid, I whispered. Maybe, but better paranoid than sorry. We pulled in beside the Mercedes, and that's when Marcus saw it. A bag in their back seat that hadn't been visible before. Dark leather, expensive-looking, partially hidden under a jacket. They brought an overnight bag, I said. So what? So why didn't they bring it in? Good question. My parents never left luggage in cars. They considered it inviting theft, even in neighborhoods like ours. Marcus was out of the car before I could respond, moving with the fluid purpose I recognized from his rare moments of real anger. I followed my heels clicking on the driveway as I tried to keep up. Through the front window, I could see my mother in the living room with the children, all 3 on the couch. She was showing them something on her phone. Normal grandparent behavior. Except nothing about this visit had been normal. Marcus, we can't just break into their car. Watch me. But he didn't need to break in. The doors were unlocked. Another anomaly. My security-obsessed father never left car doors unlocked. Unless he planned to need something from the car quickly. Marcus pulled out the leather bag, and its weight surprised him. He set it on the hood of their car, glancing at the house. Through the window, my mother was still engrossed with the children, but where was my father? Open it, I whispered. It's probably just clothes. But his hands were already working the zipper. The bag opened like Pandora's box, revealing not clothes but papers, stacks and stacks of papers. And on top, in a clear plastic folder, custody emergency filing paperwork with our children's names typed in stark black letters. The world tilted. I grabbed the car to steady myself as Marcus pulled out document after document, custody papers. A psychological evaluation claiming I was an unfit mother, signed by a Dr. Patricia Holloway I'd never met. Photos of our house with red circles marking hazards like the fact that we had stairs and kitchen knives. Bank statements printed from somewhere showing every purchase we'd made in the last 6 months, with certain items highlighted. Jaden's therapy bills circled in red with excessive medical intervention written in my mother's handwriting. "Oh my God," I breathed. "Oh my God, Marcus." He kept pulling out papers. A report from a private investigator dated 2 months ago. Photos of me at the grocery store, at school, pickup at the park. Photos of Marcus at work, at his gym getting coffee. Photos of our children playing in the backyard taken with a long-distance lens. They'd been watching us, stalking us, documenting our lives for months. "Look at this." Marcus's voice was deadly calm, the tone he used when he was so far past anger, he'd circled back to cold fury. He held up a receipt. 2 car seats, booster seats, the exact models for Emma and Jaden's heights and weights. My hands shook as I grabbed another folder. Inside were plane tickets, today's date, a flight leaving in 4 hours from my parents' home state, 2 adult tickets and 2 children's tickets in Emma and Jaden Madison's names. Not Emma and Jaden Harris. They'd already changed their last names on the tickets. "They're trying to kidnap our children." The words came out as a whisper because saying them louder would make them too real. "My parents are trying to steal our babies." Marcus was already pulling out his phone. "We're calling the police, now." Wait. I grabbed another document. It was a letter from a law firm called Stonefield and Associates. "Look at this." The letter outlined their services in emergency custody transfers and grandparent rights enforcement. It referenced other successful cases where grandparents had been awarded immediate custody due to parental negligence and danger to minor children. "Keisha." Marcus's voice was urgent. "This says they filed an emergency custody petition this morning. This morning, while they were driving here, they were filing court papers saying our kids were in immediate danger." "But that's insane. There's no danger. They've never even reported us to CPS." "They don't need to. Look." He showed me another paper. They created their own report, had some doctor they paid evaluate us without ever meeting us. They've been building this case for months. I thought I might vomit right there in the driveway. All those questions about schedules, medications, therapy. They weren't trying to be good grandparents. They were gathering evidence. "The photos," I said suddenly. "All those photos today. They were documenting that they had access, that the children were comfortable with them. And the gifts, high-end gifts to show they could provide better. The passports. They copied the passports." We stared at each other in dawning horror. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a carefully orchestrated plan. My parents had come here not to babysit, but to take our children and disappear into their wealthy world where money could buy judges and lawyers and whatever story they wanted to tell. "Call 911, I said. "I'm getting our kids." But as I turned toward the house, the front door opened. My father stood there, his face expressionless. "I thought I heard a car," he said calmly, as if we hadn't just discovered his kidnapping plot spread across the hood of his Mercedes. "Forget something." "You could say that." Marcus held up the custody papers. We forgot that Keisha's parents were criminals. My father's expression didn't change. "Those are private legal documents. These are falsified custody papers for children you have no right to take," Marcus shot back. "The police will be very interested in them." The police. My mother appeared behind my father, her face shifting from confusion to calculation in an instant. "Whatever for—" "You're trying to steal our children." I couldn't believe I was saying these words to my own parents. "You have plane tickets, car seats. You were going to take them tonight." My mother's mask finally slipped, revealing something cold and determined underneath. "We're trying to save them." Save them from what? I pushed past my father into the house, needing to see my children. From parents who love them, from a happy home. Happy. She followed me, her voice rising. "You call this happy Marcus working 60 hours a week while you pretend to have a career Jaden in therapy because you can't handle his needs. Emma growing up confused about what she is. What she is." I whirled around to face her. "She's a brilliant, kind, confident little girl who knows exactly who she is, which is more than I can say for you." Emma and Jaden were still on the couch, but Emma had that look she got when she was listening to grown-up conversations she wasn't supposed to hear. I moved to them quickly. "Hey babies, we're going to cut the visit short, okay?" "Are Grandma and Grandpa leaving?" Emma asked hopefully. "Yes, they are." "Good," Jaden said simply. "They asked too many questions." My father stepped forward. "Now let's all calm down. There's been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding." Marcus laughed bitterly. "You hired a private investigator to stalk us. You falsified medical documents. You bought plane tickets to flee the state with our children. What part are we misunderstanding?" "We have resources you don't," my father said, as if that explained everything. "Private schools therapy that actually works opportunities these children will never have with you. Therapy that actually works." I stood putting myself between him and my children. "You mean conversion therapy to make Jaden normal schools that will teach Emma to be ashamed of half her heritage." "We mean giving them a proper life," my mother interjected. "Not this experiment you're running." "Experiment." My voice was deadly quiet. "My family is not an experiment. My marriage is not a phase. My children are not broken." "Your children are at risk," she shot back. "Living in this neighborhood, going to public school, being raised by a father who doesn't even know his own bloodline." There it was, the real reason. It had never been about the children's welfare. It had been about blood, about race, about their deep-seated belief that their lily-white world was being contaminated by my choices. Marcus had already dialed 911. I could hear him giving our address explaining the situation. My parents heard it too. "This is a family matter," my father said urgently. "No need for police involvement." "You stop being family the moment you plan to kidnap my children," I replied. "We're their grandparents. We have rights." "You have the right to leave my property before the police arrest you." My mother turned to the children then, and I saw something desperate in her eyes. "Emma, sweetheart, wouldn't you like to come stay with Grandma? I have a beautiful room all ready for you, with a canopy bed and a pony at the nearby stable." "No," Emma said firmly. "I want to stay with my real family." Jaden. My father tried. I have a train set at my house, a whole room of trains. Jaden didn't even look at him. He was stimming more intensely now, overwhelmed by the tension in the room. I sat beside him, offering the pressure input he needed to calm down. "It's okay, baby," I murmured. "The police are coming to make them leave." "The police?" My mother's voice went shrill. "You'd call the police on your own parents." "I'd call the police on anyone trying to steal my children." "Steal?" She laughed high and unnatural. "We're offering them a better life. Look at this place. Look at how you live. Jaden in therapy because you've labeled him as defective. Emma growing up not knowing if she's black or white or what. You married beneath you, Keisha, and now you're dragging innocent children down with you. Get out!" I stood, my whole body shaking with rage. "Get out of my house before I physically remove you." "You always were dramatic," my father said coldly, "just like when you insisted on marrying him despite our objections. Selfish, impulsive, unfit to be a mother." That's when Emma stood up, all 4 feet of her radiating fury. "My mommy is the best mommy in the world. You're just mean people who don't know how to love anybody." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of sirens approaching. My parents looked at each other, and for the first time I saw fear in their eyes. This hadn't gone according to their plan. They'd expected to leave with our children before we ever knew what happened. "Robert," my mother said urgently, "the bag." "Leave it," Marcus commanded. "That's evidence." My father moved toward the door anyway, but Marcus blocked him. For a moment they stood face to face, my elderly father and my husband in his prime, and the outcome was never in doubt. "You people," my father spat, "always resorting to violence." "You people?" Marcus smiled coldly. "You mean engineers' fathers' men who protect their families from predators." The sirens were right outside now. Through the window, I could see police cars pulling up their lights, painting our suburban street in reds and blues. "This isn't over," my mother hissed at me. "We have lawyers, we have money, we have connections." And we have the truth, I replied, plus evidence of attempted kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy. Good luck explaining that to your country club. The police were at the door. Marcus let them in, and suddenly our living room was full of uniforms. I held my children close as Marcus explained the situation, showed them the documents, the tickets, the whole sick plan. "Ma'am." One officer addressed my mother, "I'm going to need you to step outside. This is a family dispute." She tried one last time. "Surely there's no need." "Ma'am, step outside now." As they were led away, my father turned back to look at me. "We only wanted what was best for them." "No," I said clearly so everyone could hear. "You wanted what was best for you. You wanted grandchildren who looked like you, thought like you, lived like you. But these are my children. They're perfect exactly as they are, and you will never, ever come near them again." The door closed behind them, and I sank onto the couch, pulling Emma and Jaden into my arms. They clung to me, Emma crying silently while Jaden hummed his comfort song. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's over. You're safe. Mommy and Daddy will always keep you safe." But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. This was just the beginning of a fight that would test every ounce of strength we had. My parents had shown their true colors, revealed the depths of their prejudice and entitlement. They'd tried to steal my children because they couldn't accept my choices, my husband, my life. They'd failed tonight. But as I watched the police cars drive away with my parents in custody, I knew they'd be back. People like them always came back armed with lawyers and lies and the absolute conviction that their money and status entitled them to whatever they wanted. But they'd underestimated me. They'd underestimated Marcus. Most of all, they'd underestimated the fierce love that bound our family together. They wanted a fight, they'd get one, and we would win. Because real family, chosen family, the family you build with love and acceptance and daily acts of care, that's stronger than blood, stronger than money, stronger than all the prejudice in the world. As I held my children in the wreckage of what should have been a simple anniversary dinner, I made a promise. No one would ever make them feel less than. No one would ever try to tear our family apart again. And if they tried, well, they'd learn what this mama bear was truly capable of. The war for our children had begun, and I was ready to fight it with everything I had. The police had been in our home for 20 minutes documenting everything. Detective Sarah Chen, a woman about my age with kind eyes and an efficient manner, was photographing the contents of my parents' bag while her partner interviewed Marcus in the kitchen. Emma and Jaden sat pressed against me on the couch, their usual bedtime long past, but nobody was thinking about normal routines anymore. "Mrs. Harris," Detective Chen said gently, sitting across from us, "I need to ask your children a few questions. Would that be okay?" I felt both kids tense. "Can I stay with them?" "Of course. Emma, can you tell me what your grandparents said to you tonight?" Emma straightened her voice clear despite her lingering tears. "Grandma kept asking if I was happy here. She said she had a big house with a pool and horses, and that I could live there and go to a better school." "Did she say you'd be visiting or living there?" "Living. She said I'd have my own room that was all pink and white. I told her I hate pink, but she said I'd learn to like it." Detective Chen made notes. "Did she mention your parents coming with you?" "No, she said Mommy and Daddy needed time to figure things out and I'd be happier with her." My heart shattered. They'd been planting seeds of abandonment in my 8-year-old's mind. "What about you, Jaden?" the detective asked gently. "Did your grandparents say anything special to you?" Jaden rocked slightly, his voice monotone when he spoke. "Grandpa said I was sick and he knew doctors who could fix me. He said his house was quiet and I wouldn't have to be scared of loud noises anymore." "You're not sick, baby," I whispered. "I know. That's what I told him. He said I was too young to understand." Detective Chen's expression hardened. "Did either of your grandparents touch you or try to take you anywhere?" "Grandma kept trying to touch my hair," Jaden said, "and she held Emma's hand really tight when you left. Emma said it hurt." She wouldn't let go, Emma confirmed. Even when I said I needed the bathroom, she said I could wait. Every word was another nail in my parents' coffin. They'd shown up here with a plan, and part of that plan had been ensuring our children couldn't get away if we came back too soon. Marcus returned from the kitchen, his face grim. "Detective, they found something else." We followed him outside, where another officer was searching my parents' car with their consent. In the trunk, he'd discovered 2 small suitcases, children's suitcases, already packed. "Oh my God," I breathed. Inside were clothes in Emma and Jaden's exact sizes. New clothes with the tags still on, pajamas, underwear, toothbrushes, everything you'd need if you were stealing children and couldn't risk going back to their home. "This is premeditated kidnapping," Detective Chen said. "This goes way beyond a custody dispute." "But they filed papers," I said. "Won't they claim they thought it was legal?" "Filing false documents is a crime. Conspiracy to commit kidnapping is a crime. Interstate flight with minors is a federal crime." She looked at me seriously. "Your parents are in significant legal trouble." "Good," Marcus said flatly. "They should be." As we stood in our driveway surrounded by evidence of my parents' betrayal, neighbors began emerging from their houses. Mrs. Johnson from next door hurried over, her face creased with concern. "Keisha, honey, what's happening? Are the kids okay?" "They're fine," I managed. "There was an incident with my parents. Those people who were taking all those pictures earlier, I thought something was off about them. They asked me all sorts of questions about you two when they saw me gardening." Another neighbor, Tom, from across the street, joined us. "They approached me last week, said they were planning a surprise visit and wanted to know about the neighborhood. Asked if I'd ever seen anything concerning about your family." "What did you tell them?" Marcus asked. "That you're the best parents on the block and they were lucky to have you as family." They didn't seem happy with that answer. More pieces of the puzzle falling into place. My parents had been building their case through manipulation and lies, trying to find anyone who would say something negative about us. "We'll need statements from both of you," Detective Chen told our neighbors. "This helps establish a pattern of behavior." As the crime scene techs continued processing evidence, I noticed a black sedan pull up down the street. A woman in an expensive suit got out her heels, clicking purposefully on the pavement as she approached. "I'm Patricia Stonefield," she announced, producing a business card. "I represent Robert and Barbara Madison." "The custody lawyer," Marcus growled. "The one running the kidnapping ring." She smiled coldly. "I'm a family attorney specializing in grandparent rights. I'm here to resolve this misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. I stepped forward, but Marcus caught my arm. "You helped them plan to kidnap my children." "I helped them file legitimate paperwork to protect minors they believed were in danger. Everything we've done is perfectly legal." "Falsifying medical reports is legal," Detective Chen interjected. "Conspiracy to commit kidnapping. You'll find all our documentation is in order. Dr. Holloway is a respected psychiatrist who evaluated the family situation and found it concerning." "Dr. Holloway never met us," I protested. "She didn't need to. She reviewed extensive documentation provided by concerned grandparents, photos, videos, witness statements." "Witness statements from who?" "That's privileged information." "This is insane," Marcus said. "You can't just take people's children based on made-up reports." Attorney Stonefield's smile never wavered. "We can when those children are at risk. A mother who can't control her temper, a father who works excessive hours, a special needs child not receiving proper care. Grandparents with resources have not just a right, but an obligation to intervene. My children are loved, healthy, and thriving," I said through gritted teeth. "Are they?" "Your son is in therapy, twice a week. That suggests problems. Your daughter is being raised without a clear cultural identity. That suggests confusion. You live in a modest neighborhood when the children could have every advantage. That suggests neglect of their potential." "That suggests we're normal parents doing our best," Marcus countered. "Not that we're unfit." "That's for a judge to decide. and judges in this state favor keeping children with blood relatives who can provide superior opportunities. They're already with blood relatives, I snapped. Their parents. She checked her phone. The Madison family has resources you can't imagine. They'll post bail within hours, and then we'll see you in court. I suggest you find a very good lawyer. You'll need one. As she walked away, I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Don't let her scare you, Detective Chen said quietly. What your parents did tonight was criminal regardless of what papers they filed, but you should get a lawyer. Tonight. Back inside, I found Emma and Jaden curled up together on the couch, exhausted by the emotional upheaval. Looking at them so innocent and vulnerable, rage filled me like nothing I'd ever experienced. Marcus called David Washington. He handled the Thompsons' custody case last year. It's 9 o'clock at night. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning. Our children need protection. While Marcus made calls, I sat with our babies, running my fingers through Emma's braids and rubbing Jaden's back in the soothing pattern he liked. "Mommy," Emma whispered, "are Grandma and Grandpa bad people?" How did you answer that? How did you explain that the people who should love and protect them had tried to tear their world apart? They made very bad choices, I said carefully. They let their wrong ideas hurt our family. Why don't they like Daddy? Oh, sweetheart, it's not really about Daddy. It's about them not understanding that families come in all different ways, and all of them are beautiful if there's love. Our family has tons of love, Jaden said matter-of-factly. The most love, I agreed, kissing his head. Detective Chen returned with her partner. We're taking the evidence back to the station. Your parents are being processed now. They'll be charged with attempted kidnapping, filing false reports, conspiracy, and fraud. The district attorney will review the case, but given the evidence, I expect they'll pursue full prosecution. What about the custody filing? I asked. Family court is separate from criminal court. They can still pursue that case, but being charged with trying to kidnap the children won't help their argument. After the police left, promising to be in touch tomorrow, we were alone in our too-quiet house. The abandoned gifts my parents had brought sat on the coffee table like props from a play that had gone horribly wrong. I'm going to check all the locks, Marcus said. Then we're moving the kids into our room tonight. I nodded. None of us wanted to be separated. As I helped the children get ready for bed, moving through our routine like zombies, my phone rang. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Keisha. My mother's voice, but different, smaller. They're saying I have to stay here overnight, in jail with criminals. You are a criminal mom. You tried to kidnap my children. I was trying to save them. You don't understand what you're doing to them, raising them in that environment with those influences. They'll never reach their potential. Their potential as what perfect white grandchildren who pretend half their heritage doesn't exist. You're being dramatic. You bought plane tickets. You packed their clothes. You were going to steal them. I was going to give them opportunities. Her voice cracked. Private schools where they'd excel. Therapy that would actually help Jaden instead of enabling his conditions. A community where Emma wouldn't be stared at. Emma gets stared at in your community, Mom, just for different reasons. At least she'd be safe. Safe from what? From parents who love her. From a father who reads her stories every night. From a mother who celebrates every part of who she is. Safe from the world that will judge her. That will limit her. That will hurt her because of what she is. What she is perfect. What she is loved. What she is none of your business anymore. I'm your mother. No, you lost that title tonight. You're just someone I used to know who couldn't love me enough to accept my choices. Keisha, please. Your father and I only wanted... I hung up. There was nothing she could say that would undo what they'd done. Nothing that would erase the image of those suitcases in their trunk or the fear in my children's eyes. Marcus appeared in the doorway. David Washington will be here first thing in the morning. He says to document everything tonight while it's fresh. Take pictures of anything they touched or moved. Save any texts or voicemails. They've been planning this for months, I said numbly. All those years of cold distance, and then suddenly they care. They were just gathering evidence. Hey, he pulled me into his arms. We stopped them. Our babies are safe. That's what matters. For now, you heard that lawyer. They'll be out on bail tomorrow, and then they'll come at us with everything they have. Then we'll be ready, we'll fight, and we'll win. How can you be so sure? He pulled back to look at me. Because we're right. Because we're good parents. Because love wins over hate even when hate has money and connections. Does it, though? I thought about all the families torn apart by systems that favored wealth over welfare. What if they find a judge who agrees with them? What if... Then we keep fighting. We appeal. We move if we have to. We protect our family no matter what. That night, we made a nest of blankets on our bedroom floor. Emma and Jaden slept between us, their breathing eventually evening out into the rhythm of exhausted sleep. But Marcus and I lay awake standing guard over our children like ancient sentinels. I keep thinking about nature documentaries. I whispered in the darkness, how predators always go for the young, how parents will fight to the death to protect their babies. That's what we'll do if we have to. I never thought the predators would be my own parents. His hand found mine over our sleeping children. Family isn't blood, Keisha. It's choice. And we choose each other. We choose them. Every day. What if choosing isn't enough? What if the law says blood matters more? Then we make sure the law sees the truth. We show them what real family looks like. As dawn approached, neither of us had slept. But we'd done something more important. We'd stood watch. We'd held the line. We'd kept our babies safe for one more night. The war was coming. My parents would regroup, rearm themselves with lawyers and lies and all the privilege their money could buy. They'd try to paint us as unfit, try to tear apart the family we'd built with such love and intention. But they'd already lost the most important battle. They'd shown our children who they really were. And Emma and Jaden had chosen, us had clung to us, had trusted us to protect them. That trust was worth more than all the money in my parents' bank accounts, and I'd die before I let them down. The sun rose on a new day, but also on a new reality. We were no longer just the Harris family, living our quiet life in our modest neighborhood. We were survivors of an attempted kidnapping. We were fighters in a battle we'd never asked for. We were parents who discovered that sometimes the greatest threat comes from within. But most of all, we were together. Battered, exhausted, frightened, but together. And as long as we had each other, we had everything worth fighting for. By 7 a.m, our house had transformed into a command center. David Washington, our lawyer, sat at our dining room table, surrounded by documents, his usually cheerful face set in grim lines. He was a tall black man in his 50s who'd grown up in foster care himself before becoming one of the state's best family attorneys. Marcus had chosen well. "This is bigger than just your parents," David said, showing us his laptop screen. "Patricia Stonefield has been involved in 12 similar cases in the past 3 years. Always the same pattern: wealthy grandparents, mixed race, or non-traditional families fabricated evidence of neglect." "How is she not in jail?" I asked, exhausted from our sleepless night but running on pure adrenaline. "Because she's smart. Everything appears legal on the surface. The evaluations come from real doctors who never actually meet the families. The custody filings use careful language that skirts the edge of perjury without crossing it. And most families settle out of court because they can't afford to fight." "We're not settling," Marcus said firmly. "Good, because this needs to be exposed. But first we need to prepare for their counterattack." The doorbell rang, making us all jump. Through the peephole, I saw Detective Chen with 2 other officers. "Mrs. Harris, we need to speak with you about some developments," she said when I opened the door. My heart sank. They're out already. "On bail, yes, but that's not why we're here. We executed a search warrant at your parents' home early this morning. What we found, you need to see this." She handed me a tablet showing photos from my parents' house. My childhood home, normally pristine and showpiece perfect, had been transformed. What used to be my father's study was now a war room. Charts on the walls tracking our daily routines, printed screenshots of every social media post I'd made in 5 years, photos of our children organized by date and location, red strings connecting various evidence like some conspiracy theorist's fever dream. "Oh my God," I whispered, "this is insane." "It gets worse," Detective Chen said. "We found correspondence between your parents and other families in their social circle. They've been recruiting others to their cause. There's an entire network of grandparents who believe they're saving grandchildren from inappropriate family situations." "By inappropriate, they mean interracial," Marcus said flatly. "Among other things, single parents, LGBTQ parents, parents with disabilities, parents they deem too poor. Your case is part of something much larger." David was already taking notes. "This is a conspiracy. RICO charges could apply. The FBI is now involved." Detective Chen confirmed. "This crosses state lines, but that also means your parents have access to significant resources. They've hired a team from Stonefield's firm." A team. I felt sick. 4 lawyers so far. They're already filing motions. Emergency custody hearings, restraining orders, claiming you're alienating the children from their grandparents' petitions for supervised visitation. Supervised visitation. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. After they tried to kidnap them, they're claiming it was a misunderstanding, that they had your verbal permission to take the children for an extended visit, that you're now making false accusations because of a family disagreement. That's a lie. We know, but they're creating a counter-narrative. Speaking of which, she pulled out her phone. "Are you aware your mother gave an interview to Channel 7 this morning?" "What?" She showed us the video. My mother looking every inch the wounded grandmother in pearls and perfectly applied makeup despite her night in jail standing outside their lawyer's office. "We only wanted to spend quality time with our grandchildren," she told the reporter, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. "But our daughter has always been troubled. We tried to help, but she's turned our son-in-law against us, and now she's poisoning our grandchildren's minds. We just want what's best for Emma and Jaden." That manipulative. Marcus caught himself glancing at the kids who were eating breakfast in the kitchen, trying to maintain some normalcy. The reporter continued, "Sources say you filed for emergency custody. Can you explain why?" My mother's face arranged itself into concerned lines. "When we saw the conditions, they were living in the behavioral problems that aren't being properly addressed, the isolation from extended family, we felt we had no choice. Those children deserve better than a mother who works all the time and a father who—" She paused delicately. "Well, who can't provide them with the cultural foundation they need." "Cultural foundation," the reporter pressed. "Children need to understand their heritage, their real heritage, not some confused mixture that leaves them belonging nowhere." I thought I might throw the tablet across the room. She's telling the world our children don't belong anywhere. "She's laying groundwork," David said grimly, "painting you as unstable Marcus, as inadequate the children as suffering. Classic narrative manipulation." "We need to respond," I said. "We need to tell our side." "No." David's voice was firm. "Anything you say publicly can be used against you in court. Let me handle the media strategy. You focus on your children and documenting everything." Detective Chen stood. "I need to ask about something else. Your parents' phone records show multiple calls to someone named Dorothy Whitman. Do you know her?" The name hit me like a slap. "She's a family friend. She runs a therapeutic boarding school in Montana. For troubled children, for children whose parents want them reprogrammed." I felt sick remembering the brochures she'd once shown my mother. It's one of those places that claims to fix everything from autism to homosexuality to racial confusion. Jesus, Marcus muttered. We're looking into the school now, Detective Chen said. If they were planning to send your children there. It's kidnapping and conspiracy to commit child abuse, David finished. This keeps getting worse. As if on cue, my phone rang. Unknown number. David nodded for me to answer while he recorded. Hello, Keisha. A woman's smooth voice, not my mother. This is Dorothy Whitman. I heard about your family's situation. Did my mother call you? She's concerned. As am I. Those precious children need stability, structure, proper guidance. My facility could help young Jaden overcome his challenges. Jaden doesn't need to overcome anything. He's autistic, not broken. Such defensiveness. Barbara warned me you were in denial about his condition, and Emma struggling with her identity in ways that will only worsen as she ages. We have programs designed specifically for mixed-race children to help them choose a cultural path. Are you insane? She's 8 years old and perfectly happy with who she is. Is she, or is that what you tell yourself to justify the confusion you've created? Children need clear identity, firm boundaries, consistent discipline, things you seem unable to provide. If you come near my children, I'll have you arrested. Such hostility. This is exactly what Barbara described. You really should consider what's best for them, rather than clinging to your liberal delusions about family. I hung up my hands, shaking. She's part of it. They were going to take our babies to a conversion camp. Emma appeared in the doorway, her face serious. Mommy, are people trying to take us away? I knelt down to her level. Some people are confused about what's best for our family, but Daddy and I won't let anything happen to you. I don't want to go to a special school. I like my school. I like my friends. I like being me. And you get to keep being exactly who you are, baby. Nobody gets to change that. Jaden joined us carrying his weighted lap pad. The lady on TV said we're confused. I'm not confused. I know exactly who I am. I'm Jaden Marcus Harris, age 6 3/4, favorite color blue, favorite animal foxes, favorite food mac and cheese, but only the spiral kind. That's right, buddy, you're perfect. I know, he said simply, then returned to his breakfast. David smiled slightly. Your kids are remarkable. That's going to matter in court. They'll have to testify. The thought horrified me. Possibly. A good guardian ad litem will want to hear from them. But don't worry about that yet. We have more immediate concerns. He was right. By noon, the situation had escalated dramatically. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from reporters, extended family members who'd seen the news, and numbers I didn't recognize. Our quiet street was disrupted by news vans and curious neighbors. Then came the knock that changed everything. Keisha Harris. A woman in a severe suit stood at our door with a clipboard. I'm from Child Protective Services. We've received a complaint and need to conduct an immediate welfare check. My knees almost buckled. CPS, but we didn't do anything wrong. I'm not here to make accusations, ma'am, just to ensure the children are safe. May I come in? David appeared behind me. I'm the family's attorney. Can I see your identification and the complaint? She handed over her credentials and a document. The complaint was anonymous, but the allegations were familiar neglect, inappropriate living conditions, untreated mental health issues in the children, potential abuse. This is retaliation, I said. My parents filed this because we caught them trying to kidnap our children. I'm aware of the situation, the caseworker said not unkindly. But when we receive a complaint, we have to investigate. It's protocol. Then investigate, Marcus said, joining us. We have nothing to hide. For the next hour, she toured our home, checking for safety hazards that didn't exist, looking in our well-stocked refrigerator, examining the children's rooms with their books and toys and drawings on the walls. She spoke with Emma and Jaden separately, asking gentle questions about their routines, their happiness, any fears they might have. I could hear Emma through the door. My parents are the best. They read to us every night and make special pancakes on Saturdays and always listen when we're sad. The only thing I'm scared of is my grandparents taking us away." When the caseworker emerged, her expression had softened considerably. "Mrs. Harris, it's clear your children are well cared for and loved. This appears to be a malicious complaint. I'll file my report stating no concerns were found." "But it's on record now," David said quietly after she left. "That's what they wanted. A CPS investigation, even one that finds nothing, can be twisted in court." "How do we fight this?" I asked desperately. "They have money lawyers' connections. They're creating a false narrative and spreading it everywhere." "We tell the truth," David said. "We document everything. We let the criminal charges speak for themselves, and we trust the system to see through their lies." But as I looked out at the circus my life had become, I wondered if trust was enough. My parents had turned our world into a battlefield, and they were using weapons I'd never imagined family would wield against each other. The war for our children was escalating, and I was beginning to understand that in their world, truth was just another casualty. 3 days after the attempted kidnapping, David Washington called an emergency meeting. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by barely contained fury as he spread documents across our dining room table. "We've uncovered something massive," he began. "Patricia Stonefield isn't just a lawyer taking advantage of family disputes. She's running an organized operation." Marcus and I leaned forward as David showed us a chart with interconnected names, dates, and dollar amounts. In the past 5 years, Stonefield and Associates has facilitated 43 emergency custody transfers, from parents to grandparents. In every case, the parents were either mixed-race couples, single mothers, LGBTQ families, or had children with special needs. In every case, the grandparents were wealthy, white, and connected. 43 families. I could barely breathe. How has no one stopped this? Because it's all been done under the radar. Small towns, different jurisdictions sealed family court records. Your parents made a mistake going big with the kidnapping attempt. That's what exposed the whole network. He pulled out another folder. This is the worst part. In 60% of these cases, the children ended up at therapeutic facilities like Dorothy Whitman's school, places that practice conversion therapy, behavior modification, and worse. Worse, Marcus's voice was dangerously low. 7 children have died in these facilities over the past decade. Suicide accidents, medical neglect. Dozens more have testified about abuse when they aged out. I ran to the bathroom and vomited. The thought of Emma and Jaden in one of those places being tortured for being who they were, being told their very existence was wrong. When I returned shaky but determined, David was showing Marcus financial records. Your parents paid Stonefield a $50,000 retainer, but there are additional payments planned. $25,000 upon successful custody transfer, another $50,000 once the children were enrolled at Whitman's facility. They were buying our children, Marcus said flatly. Essentially, yes. The FBI found similar payment structures in other cases. It's human trafficking disguised as custody disputes. But why, I asked, why would grandparents do this to their own families? David's expression was grim. We found online forums, private Facebook groups, even a newsletter. They call themselves Grandparents' Rights Warriors and believe they're saving children from destructive modern lifestyles. They share tactics, recommend lawyers like Stonefield, celebrate when they rescue grandchildren. He showed us screenshots that made my blood run cold. My mother's username was visible in multiple discussions. Finally convinced R to file papers, I read aloud from one of her posts dated 2 months ago. The children will thank us someday for saving them from their mother's selfish choices. Another post, visited today. Jay's condition is worse, clearly not getting proper treatment. He confused about identity as expected. Documentation gathered. Liberation soon. Liberation, I spat. She was plotting to steal my babies and calling it liberation. Look at this one. Marcus pointed to a different screenshot. Dorothy's facility has immediate openings. J, perfect candidate for intensive intervention. E, young enough for identity redirection. Insurance will cover through proper diagnosis coding. Insurance fraud, too, David noted. They were going to fake diagnoses to get insurance to pay for torturing your children. I kept reading each post more horrifying than the last. Grandparents celebrating successful custody grabs, sharing photos of rescued children at boarding schools, discussing how to break parent-child bonds, recommending which judges were sympathetic to their cause. This one mentions you specifically, David said gently, showing me a thread titled, Dealing with Resistant Adult Children. My mother had written, Kay has always been stubborn, even as a child. Marrying beneath her was predictable rebellion. The children are innocent victims. Sometimes we must be cruel to be kind. They'll understand when they're older and properly educated. The responses were a chorus of agreement and advice. Cut off financial support to create desperation. Document every parenting mistake. Twist normal childhood behavior into symptoms of neglect. Use racial anxieties to your advantage in court. They're evil, I whispered. My own parents are evil. They're indoctrinated, David corrected. This group reinforces their biases, convinces them their hatred is love, their cruelty is kindness. It's a cult mentality. What about the other families? Marcus asked. The ones who've already lost their children. David pulled out another stack. We're reaching out. 11 families have already agreed to join a class action suit. More are coming forward every day. One mother hasn't seen her son in 3 years because her parents convinced a judge she was unfit after she married a Mexican immigrant. He showed us her photo, a woman my age holding a picture of a little boy who looked like Jaden. Maria Rodriguez. Her son Diego is at a facility in Utah that claims to correct cultural confusion. She's been fighting to get him back, but every appeal has been denied. How, I asked, how do judges let this happen? Small towns elected judges who share the grandparents' views, sealed records that prevent pattern recognition, and money, always money. These grandparents hire experts who testify exactly what they want to hear. Like Dr. Holloway, Marcus said, the one who evaluated us without meeting us. Exactly. We've found she's done this 30 times. Always the same diagnosis: parental alienation syndrome, childhood identity disorder, selective mutism that's really defiance. Terms that sound medical but are designed to pathologize normal behavior. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. David nodded for me to answer on speaker. Mrs. Harris, this is Judge Eleanor Whitfield. I'll be presiding over your custody hearing next week. My heart sank. A custody hearing was scheduled already. Your Honor, I have representation. I'm calling as a courtesy. Given the serious nature of the allegations against you, I strongly suggest you consider a voluntary temporary transfer of custody to your parents while we sort this matter out. It would show good faith and— Absolutely not, David interrupted. This is highly inappropriate, Your Honor. Ex parte communications about an active case. Who is this? David Washington, counsel for the Harris family. I'll be filing a motion for your recusal immediately. This call is being recorded. The line went dead. She's one of them, I said numbly. The judge is part of their network. Possibly, or possibly your parents' lawyers reached out to influence her. Either way, we'll get her removed from the case. And get another judge who might be just as bad? We'll request a change of venue. Take it out of this jurisdiction entirely. Move it to federal court if we can, given the interstate elements. Emma appeared in the doorway, Jaden behind her. They'd been playing in their room, but both looked serious. Are the bad people trying to steal us again? Emma asked. I wanted to lie to protect them from this ugliness, but they'd already seen too much. Yes, baby, but we're fighting back and we're going to win. I've been thinking, Emma said in her little professor voice. If they take us, we'll run away. I know how to use the GPS on a phone and Jaden memorized the bus routes. We'll find our way home. That's very smart, Marcus said, his voice thick. But you won't need to run away because you're not going anywhere. Promise, Jaden asked. Promise, we said together. But as I tucked them in that night, I wondered if it was a promise we could keep. The system my parents were exploiting was vast, well-funded, and deeply entrenched. They had judges, doctors, lawyers, and an entire network of bitter grandparents convinced they were saving children by destroying families. After the kids were asleep, I found myself in Emma's room staring at her drawings on the wall. One showed our family as stick figures holding hands, all different shades of brown, with hearts floating above our heads. Another showed her and Jaden as superheroes, protecting love from meanies. "We could run," Marcus said from the doorway. "Pack up tonight, disappear. Start over somewhere they can't find us." Is that what you want? I want our children safe. If that means becoming fugitives, no. The word came out stronger than I expected. We don't run. We don't let them turn us into criminals. We stand and fight not just for our kids, but for all the families they've destroyed. He nodded slowly. Then we'd better win. That night I couldn't sleep again. I kept reading the forum posts, seeing the casual cruelty disguised as concern. Grandparents discussing how to break their grandchildren's spirits, how to erase their identities, how to punish parents for the crime of creating families that didn't look like Christmas cards from 1952. One post haunted me. The hardest part is the beginning. They cry for their parents constantly, but Dorothy says after 6 weeks of no contact, they start to forget. After 6 months, they accept their new reality. After a year, it's like their old life never existed. The response, worth it to save them, temporary tears for a lifetime of proper values. These weren't misguided elderly people. These were predators who'd found a legal way to hunt, and my parents were paying to join their pack. I thought about calling my mother, trying one more time to reach whatever humanity might be left in her. But then I remembered her face when she'd looked at my children not with love, but with acquisition. Like they were broken objects she could fix, remake in her image. The phone rang, startling me. 3 a.m., David's name on the screen. "Keisha, I'm sorry to call so late, but you need to know. The FBI raid on Stonefield's office found something. Your parents weren't just planning to take your kids to Whitman's facility." "What do you mean?" "There are adoption papers, pre-signed, pre-dated. Your parents were planning to adopt Emma and Jaden after terminating your parental rights." That's not possible. We're alive. We're their parents." "Apparently, Whitman's facility has a tame psychologist who would testify you abandoned them. After a year with no contact, they'd prevent you'd be declared unfit. Your parents would graciously step in to adopt their abandoned grandchildren. They were going to steal our children and then legally erase us. That appears to be the plan. Keisha, this is big. RICO charges are definitely in play now. This is an organized crime syndicate dealing in child trafficking." After he hung up, I sat in the dark processing the full horror of what we'd uncovered. Somewhere out there were parents who'd lost their children to this network, children who'd been brainwashed into forgetting their real families, lives destroyed by grandparents who claimed to love them. No more. I opened my laptop and began typing. A blog post, a manifesto, a declaration of war. I titled it, "They're Stealing Our Children: How Grandparent Rights Became Human Trafficking." By morning, it had gone viral, and our real fight was just beginning. The blog post changed everything. Within 24 hours, "They're Stealing Our Children" had been shared over 100,000 times. My inbox flooded with messages from parents who'd lost custody battles, children who'd survived therapeutic facilities, and lawyers offering help. Major news outlets picked up the story. Anderson Cooper's team called wanting an exclusive interview. "We need to be strategic," David advised during an emergency meeting at our house. "This media attention is powerful, but your parents will use it against you." He was right. That afternoon, my mother appeared on a conservative talk show, perfectly coiffed and radiating wounded dignity. "I'm heartbroken," she told the host. "We tried to help our daughter's troubled family, and now we're being persecuted. These accusations of trafficking and conspiracy, it's madness. We're simply grandparents who want what's best for our grandchildren." The host, clearly sympathetic, nodded gravely. "Tell us about your concerns for Emma and Jaden." My mother dabbed at her eyes. "Jaden needs specialized care he's not receiving. Instead of proper treatment, they're letting him sink deeper into his condition. And Emma, that poor child doesn't know if she's black or white, being raised in confusion and chaos." "Some would say that's just modern parenting," the host suggested carefully. "Is it, or is it child abuse disguised as progressivism? When did wanting children to have stable identities and proper medical care become wrong?" I threw the remote across the room. "She's good at this, too good." "She's had practice," Marcus said grimly. "Look." He showed me his laptop. My mother had been on 3 other shows in the past 2 months before the kidnapping attempt, always as a concerned grandmother, speaking about family values and the crisis of modern parenting. She was building her public persona, I realized, creating a narrative before they made their move. David nodded. "They've been playing a long game, but so are we now. I've been in touch with the other families from Stonefield's files. We're organizing." 3 days later, our dining room hosted the first meeting of Families Against Fraudulent Custody Theft. 12 parents crowded around our table, each with their own horror story. Maria Rodriguez, whose son Diego I'd read about, sat next to me. 3 years, she said, gripping her coffee cup. 3 years since my parents took him. They said I was an unfit mother because I married outside my race. The judge agreed. Across from her, James Chen nodded. "My ex-wife's parents got custody of our daughter after our divorce, said I was exposing her to confusing cultural influences by teaching her Mandarin. Haven't seen Lily in 18 months. Sarah Williams had lost her autistic son to her parents after they claimed she was enabling his condition by accepting his diagnosis. Robert Brown's parents had taken his children when he came out as gay. Story after story of families torn apart by grandparents who couldn't accept difference." "We need to coordinate," David said. "File our class action demand, federal investigation push for legislative change. No family should go through this." "What about the children already in facilities?" Maria asked desperately. "My Diego is still at that place in Utah." "We're working on emergency injunctions. Every facility connected to Stonefield is being investigated. But we need evidence of what happens inside." "I have evidence," a young voice said from the doorway. We turned to see a teenager, maybe 17, with haunted eyes and close-cropped hair. "I'm Alex Thompson. I spent 2 years at Whitman's facility. I aged out last month. I heard about your group online." Sarah Williams gasped. "Alex, oh my God, you were in my son's unit. Is Michael okay?" Alex's face crumpled. "He's surviving. We all just tried to survive." For the next hour, Alex told us about life inside Whitman's facility, the isolation cells for children who mentioned their parents, the identity correction sessions where mixed-race children were forced to choose one heritage, the punishment for speaking languages other than English, the medication forced on children to make them compliant. "Michael's strong," Alex told Sarah. "He remembers you. We all helped each other remember our real families, even though we got punished for it." I was crying. We all were. These weren't just stories anymore. These were children, real children, being tortured for the crime of being loved by parents their grandparents disapproved of. "We're getting them out," David promised. All of them. That night, I found Emma and Jaden building a fort in the living room. "Can we sleep here tonight?" Emma asked. "Together?" "Bad dreams," I guessed. "Sometimes I dream they take us away," Jaden admitted. "But in the fort, we're safe." Marcus and I exchanged glances. Our children were showing signs of trauma from the attempted kidnapping. They needed normalcy, but how could we provide that when we were in the middle of a war? "How about we all camp out here tonight?" Marcus suggested. "Family fort." As we settled into the blanket fort, Emma asked, "Why do Grandma and Grandpa hate us?" "They don't hate you," I said carefully. "They're confused about what love means." "No." Emma said firmly. Love means accepting people as they are, like you and Daddy do, like Nana Rose does. Grandma and Grandpa want to change us. That's not love. From the mouths of babes. The next morning brought a breakthrough. Detective Chen called with news from the FBI raid on Stonefield's computers. We found the whole network, email lists, payment records, correspondence with facilities across 12 states. Your blog post triggered dozens of tips. Grandparents are turning on each other, trying to cut deals. My parents, still maintaining innocence, but their financial records show payments to multiple facilities, consultants, even a judge. Which judge? Eleanor Whitfield, the one who called you. She's been taking bribes for favorable custody rulings for years. I felt a savage satisfaction. So she'll be arrested, already in custody, along with 14 others so far. This is huge, Keisha. You've exposed a massive criminal enterprise. But my parents remained free on bail and their lawyers were fighting back. They filed defamation suits claiming our blog post was libelous. They demanded supervised visitation, arguing that keeping grandchildren from grandparents was abuse. They even tried to get a restraining order against us, claiming we were harassing them. It's desperation, David assured us. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Then came the interview request that changed our strategy. 60 Minutes wanted to do a segment on grandparent custody fraud featuring our story and others from our support group. After much debate, we agreed. The filming took place in our home with Emma and Jaden playing in the background while we told our story. The interviewer was thorough but compassionate, letting us explain not just what happened, but why it mattered. This isn't just about our family, I told the camera. It's about every family that doesn't fit someone else's narrow definition of normal. It's about children being stolen and tortured because their grandparents can't accept that love comes in all colors, all configurations, all forms. Marcus added, "We're fighting not just for our kids, but for the principle that parents have the right to raise their children without interference from people who think money and prejudice trump love and acceptance." The interviewer also spoke with Maria James Sarah and others from our group, but the most powerful moment came when they interviewed Alex Thompson at the facility where they'd been held. "This place stole 2 years of my life," Alex said, standing outside the gates of Whitman's school. "They tried to convince me I was sick for being who I am. They drugged me, isolated me, punished me for remembering my real parents. This isn't therapy, it's torture. And it's happening to dozens of kids right now." The interview wouldn't air for weeks, but word got out that it was coming. Suddenly, politicians were interested. Senators called for hearings. Child welfare advocates demanded reform. The story had grown beyond our individual fight into a movement. But movements take time, and we still had a custody hearing looming. Despite everything, the criminal charges, the exposed network, the public outrage family court operated on its own timeline with its own rules. "Your parents' criminal case is separate from the custody issue," David explained. "Family court only cares about the best interests of the children. We need to prove that's with you, not them." How is that even a question? They tried to kidnap our children. They're arguing it was a misunderstanding, that they had verbal permission, that you're now alienating the children from loving grandparents. I know it's insane, but we have to take it seriously. So we prepared. Psychological evaluations for the whole family. Character witnesses lined up. Teachers, doctors, therapists, neighbors, all ready to testify that we were good parents and our children were thriving. Emma and Jaden would have to meet with a guardian ad litem, a court-appointed advocate, who would make recommendations about their best interests. The thought of strangers evaluating our children made me sick, but we had no choice. "Just be yourselves," I told them the morning of the meeting. "Tell the truth. That's all we need." "The truth is we want to stay with you and Daddy," Emma said simply, "forever and ever." "And that's what's going to happen." I promised, praying I was right. The war for our children had become a public battle, but the real fight would be in a courtroom where truth and lies would clash, where money and influence would test the strength of love and justice. We'd exposed the network, started a movement, given hope to other families. Now we had to win our own battle. For Emma, for Jaden, for every child who deserved to be loved exactly as they were. The custody hearing was in 1 week. 1 week to save our family. Game on. The guardian ad litem's name was Patricia Gonzalez, and she arrived at our house on a Tuesday morning with kind eyes and a worn leather briefcase. Unlike the CPS worker who'd come before, she radiated warmth and genuine concern. "I want you to know," she said, settling into our living room, "I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen real abuse and real love. I know the difference." Emma and Jaden sat between Marcus and me, Emma holding her brother's hand protectively. They'd dressed themselves carefully that morning, Emma in her favorite purple dress, Jaden in the dinosaur shirt that made him feel brave. "Can I talk to each child separately first?" Patricia asked. "Then we'll all chat together." I wanted to say no to keep my babies within arm's reach, but David had coached us on this. Cooperation was crucial, so Emma went first, leading Patricia to the dining room with the confidence of a child who knew she was loved. Through the French doors, I could see them talking. Emma's hands moved animatedly as she spoke, occasionally pointing to family photos on the wall. At one point, she pulled out her tablet to show Patricia something that made the woman smile broadly. "She's showing off her science presentations," Jaden informed us. "She made one about our family tree that has everybody in it, even Daddy's foster families." My heart swelled. Of course, Emma had made our complicated family into a science project. That was so perfectly her. When it was Jaden's turn, he brought his collection of fox figurines. Patricia sat on the floor with him, letting him explain each one in detail. I watched him relax as he talked about his special interest, his hands steadying as he arranged the foxes in precise patterns. "You know what I love about foxes?" I heard him say. "They're all different colors, but they're all still foxes. Like people, we're all different, but we're all still family." Marcus squeezed my hand. Our 6-year-old had just explained diversity better than most adults could. After individual conversations, Patricia gathered us all together. "I'd like to see your normal routine. Don't perform for me, just be yourselves." So we did. Marcus helped with homework while I started dinner. Emma practiced piano while Jaden built elaborate Lego structures. We ate together, talking about our days, laughing at Jaden's fox facts, planning for Emma's upcoming school play. "This is nice," Patricia said as we cleared the table together. "Real, loving, exactly what children need." "Then why are we being investigated?" Emma asked boldly. "We didn't do anything wrong. Grandma and Grandpa did." Patricia's expression was carefully neutral. "Sometimes adults disagree about what's best for children. My job is to make sure the judge understands what you need and want." "We need our parents," Jaden said simply. "We want our family, that's all." That evening, after Patricia left with pages of notes and promises to recommend maintaining our current custody arrangement, David called with urgent news. "Sit down," he said. "This is big. Bigger than what we already know." Remember Alex Thompson, the teenager who aged out of Whitman's facility? They've been busy. He sent us a link to a website, Survivors of Grandparent Custody Theft. Alex had created a platform for children who'd been through the facilities to share their stories. In 3 days, over 200 testimonials had been posted. I read through them, each one more heartbreaking than the last. They told me my mom didn't want me anymore because I was too Mexican. I found out later she'd been fighting to get me back for 5 years. I was punished every time I mentioned being proud of my Black heritage. They said I was choosing wrong. My grandparents said my dad's homosexuality was contagious. I spent 3 years in conversion therapy. I was 9 when it started. They made me take pills that made me forget things. I can't remember my little sister's face anymore. But there was hope too. Stories of resistance, of secret networks within facilities where children helped each other remember their families. Stories of aging out and finding their parents again. Stories of healing and rebuilding. The FBI wants to interview all of them, David continued. This is evidence of systematic child abuse across state lines. We're talking federal prosecution for everyone involved. What about current children in facilities? Marcus asked. Are they getting them out? Emergency injunctions filed in 6 states. Facilities are being raided as we speak. Parents are being notified. It's happening, Marcus. The whole network is crumbling. I wanted to celebrate, but all I could think about were the children still trapped, still being told their families were wrong, still being medicated into forgetting love. The next morning brought another surprise. A package arrived with familiar handwriting. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, who'd been silent through all of this. Inside was a letter and a flash drive. Keisha. The letter began, I should have spoken up sooner. I've watched my sister descend into this madness for years, but I was too cowardly to intervene. No more. This drive contains recordings from family gatherings where Barbara discussed her plans. I thought she was just venting. I was wrong. Use this to protect your children. They deserve better than what our family has become. The recordings were damning. My mother at Christmas dinner calmly discussing how she'd fix my children once she had custody. My father calculating how much it would cost to properly educate them out of their confusion. Other relatives chiming in with suggestions and support. One recording stood out, a conversation between my mother and Dorothy Whitman from Thanksgiving. The mixed-race ones are easiest to reprogram, Whitman's voice said. They're already confused about identity. We just guide them toward the correct choice. And Jaden's autism. Behavioral modification works wonders. 6 months of intensive therapy, and he'll learn to suppress those tendencies. Act normal even if he isn't. Whatever it takes, my mother replied. I won't have defective grandchildren. I had to pause the recording to cry. Defective. She'd called my perfect, brilliant, loving son defective. We're adding this to evidence, David said when I called him. Your aunt's willing to testify. The letter says she'll do whatever's necessary to make things right. That afternoon, while the kids were at school, Marcus and I met with the federal prosecutor assigned to the grandparent trafficking case. Janet Morrison was a force of nature in a power suit, with eyes that had seen too much, but still burned with righteous fury. Your blog post started an avalanche, she told us. We've identified over 300 families affected by this network, millions of dollars exchanged, children transported across state lines, facilities operating without proper licenses, judges taking bribes. This is one of the largest child trafficking cases we've ever prosecuted. When you say trafficking, I couldn't finish the sentence. That's what it is. Children being sold from their parents to their grandparents with lawyers and facilities profiting. It's trafficking, and we're going to prosecute it as such. What about our parents specifically? They're looking at federal charges for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, wire fraud, and trafficking. Combined with state charges, they could face decades in prison. Decades. My parents, who'd spent their lives maintaining perfect reputations, could die in prison. I waited to feel sympathy. It didn't come. Good, Marcus said firmly. They deserve every day of it. That evening, the news broke wide open. FBI raids across 12 states, facilities shut down, children reunited with parents, lawyers arrested, judges removed from the bench. The grandparent trafficking network was collapsing in real time, and every news channel led with the story. Our phone rang constantly, reporters, supporters, other families. Emma and Jaden watched the chaos with wide eyes. Are we famous? Emma asked. Our story is famous, I corrected, because it's helping other families. Like superheroes, Jaden decided. We're helping save kids from bad guys. Yeah, Marcus agreed, ruffling his hair. Exactly like superheroes. But we still had our own battle to fight. The custody hearing was in 3 days, and despite everything, the criminal charges, the exposed network, the guardian ad litem's recommendation, we couldn't assume victory. Family court was notoriously unpredictable, and my parents' lawyers were paid to create doubt. They'll argue the criminal charges are unproven, David warned, that mistakes were made, but grandparents still deserve access. that children need extended family. Be prepared for anything. I was prepared for legal arguments. I wasn't prepared for my mother to show up at Emma's school. The call came during lunch. Emma's principal, her voice tight with concern. "Mrs. Harris, we have a situation. Your mother is here claiming she has permission to pick up Emma." "She absolutely does not. Do not let Emma anywhere near her." "We haven't. Emma actually alerted us herself. She saw her grandmother through the office window and immediately told her teacher she felt unsafe. We've called the police." My brilliant, brave daughter. Even at 8, she knew to protect herself. By the time I arrived, the police were escorting my mother away. She saw me and her mask finally completely shattered. "You've ruined everything," she screamed. "Those children could have had perfect lives. I could have fixed them, made them normal, given them advantages you never could. You've destroyed their futures for your selfish, liberal delusions." "The only thing destroyed is your ability to hurt them," I replied calmly, "and that's the best gift I could ever give my children." As the police car drove away, Emma ran to me, burying her face in my stomach. "She said she was taking me to lunch," Emma whispered. "But I knew she was lying. She was going to steal me, wasn't she?" "She was going to try, but you're too smart, too strong, and too loved for that to ever happen." That night, our lawyer called with expected news. My mother's bail had been revoked for attempting to violate the restraining order. She'd spend the custody hearing in jail. "One down," Marcus said grimly. But my father remained free, and he had one more card to play. 2 days before the hearing, every major newspaper received a press release. Robert Madison was establishing a family values foundation with a $10 million endowment to protect traditional family structures and children's welfare. The message was clear. He had resources we couldn't match. He could fund this fight forever. "Money can't buy love," I told Marcus as we read the announcement. "It can't buy truth, and it can't buy our children." "No," he agreed, "but it can buy a lot of lawyers and expert witnesses." "Then we'd better make sure love speaks louder than money." The war for our children had exposed a national conspiracy, freed hundreds of trapped kids, and changed laws. But in the end, it would come down to a single courtroom, a single judge, and whether justice could prevail over wealth and prejudice. One more battle, the most important one. For Emma, for Jaden, for every child's right to be loved exactly as they are. The custody hearing was set for Thursday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, my father had orchestrated a media blitz that would have impressed a presidential campaign. Full-page ads in major newspapers, a hastily published op-ed in the Wall Street Journal titled, "When Parents Fail a Grandfather's Plea," even a press conference on the courthouse steps. "My daughter is sick," he told the gathered reporters, his silver hair gleaming in the afternoon sun. "Mental illness runs in families, and she's clearly suffering from paranoid delusions. These conspiracy theories about trafficking networks, it's heartbreaking to watch your child spiral like this." I watched from our living room, my hands clenched so tightly my nails drew blood. "He's gaslighting you on national television," Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. David was already on the phone with our PR team. Yes, we had a PR team now. The story had grown too big to manage without help. "We don't respond to this," David instructed. "Let him hang himself with his own words. The FBI has already confirmed the trafficking network exists. He's calling federal investigators liars." But my father was too smart for that. He pivoted smoothly, acknowledging the unfortunate criminal elements that had exploited legitimate grandparent concerns while maintaining his own innocence. He painted himself as a victim duped by unscrupulous lawyers into actions he now regretted. "All I want," he concluded, eyes misting with practiced emotion, "is to ensure my grandchildren are safe, loved, and given every opportunity to succeed. Is that so wrong?" The reporters ate it up. Within hours, Grandparents' Rights Matter was trending with thousands sharing stories of being cut off from grandchildren by vindictive parents. "He's hijacking our movement," Maria said during an emergency video call with our support group, "turning it into something else entirely. Let him said Janet Morrison, the federal prosecutor who'd joined our call. "Every word he says is evidence. He's admitting to the conspiracy while claiming ignorance. It's beautiful, actually." That evening, we had our own press conference. Not on courthouse steps, but in our backyard, surrounded by the normal chaos of family life. Emma's artwork on the walls, Jaden's therapy swing, the vegetable garden we'd planted together. "This is what my father wants to destroy," I said, simply gesturing to our home. Not because it's harmful, but because it doesn't match his vision of what a family should look like. He sees my brilliant daughter and wants to erase half her heritage. He sees my amazing son and wants to fix him instead of celebrating him. That's not love. It's not even concern. It's control. Marcus stood beside me, solid and steady. "We're not perfect parents. No one is. But we love our children unconditionally. We accept them completely. We fight for their right to be themselves. That's what family means to us." Then we did something my father hadn't expected. We brought out other families from our support group. Maria spoke about her son Diego finally home after 3 years, but struggling to readjust. James shared photos of his daughter Lily still in therapy to process her time at a facility. Sarah held up a drawing her autistic son had made a heart with "Real families love differences" written in careful letters. "This isn't about one family," I concluded. "It's about whether we as a society will allow children to be stolen and reprogrammed because they don't fit someone's narrow definition of normal. Tomorrow, a judge will decide our case. But whatever happens, we'll keep fighting for every family's right to love freely." The response was immediate and overwhelming. "Love Not Control" began trending, overtaking my father's hashtag within hours. Stories poured in from families who'd been judged, threatened, or torn apart by relatives who couldn't accept difference. But the real breakthrough came at 10 that night. David called his voice electric with excitement. "Check your email now." The attachment was a video file, security footage from Stonefield's law office dated 2 months before the kidnapping attempt. It showed my parents in a conference room with Patricia Stonefield and 2 other lawyers. The audio was clear. "We need guaranteed results," my father was saying. "Full custody, permanent termination of parental rights, and sealed records." "That's ambitious," Stonefield replied, "but doable. It'll require judicial cooperation." "Whatever it costs." "I'm not talking about money, Mr. Madison, though that will be substantial. I'm talking about your willingness to do whatever's necessary, create evidence, testify to things that may not be strictly true, potentially traumatize your grandchildren in the short term for their long-term benefit." "Whatever it takes," my mother's voice chimed in. "Those children need to be saved from their parents' lifestyle choices, even if it means never seeing their parents again. Especially then, clean breaks heal fastest." The video continued for 20 more minutes, every word damning, every sentence proving premeditation, conspiracy, and complete willingness to destroy our family. "Where did this come from?" I asked David. "Stonefield's paralegal. She's been copying files for months, horrified by what she was seeing, but afraid to speak up. The FBI raids gave her courage. She has hundreds of hours of recordings." "Is it admissible?" "In criminal court, absolutely. Family court is trickier, but Judge Harrison is known for considering all evidence that impacts child welfare. We're filing it tonight." I couldn't sit still. This video changed everything. It proved beyond doubt that my parents had planned every detail that they'd known, exactly what they were doing, that they'd been willing to traumatize Emma and Jaden to get what they wanted. "We've got them," Marcus said, watching the video for the 3rd time. "They can't explain this away." But I knew my father. He'd been playing chess while others played checkers his entire life. He'd have a counter move. It came at midnight. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Keisha." My father's voice, but different. Older, tired. "We need to talk. We have nothing to say to each other." "I'm at the Marriott downtown. Suite 1247, 1 hour. Come alone." Are you insane? There's a restraining order. You'll be arrested. 1 hour, or tomorrow I'll present evidence that will destroy your husband's career and reputation. Your choice. The line went dead. Absolutely not, Marcus said when I told him. It's a trap. What evidence could he have against you? Marcus's jaw tightened. Nothing, because I've done nothing wrong. But I saw the flicker of worry in his eyes. My father had resources connections and a vindictive streak. Even false accusations could damage a career. I'm going, I decided, but not alone and not unprepared. 45 minutes later, I stood outside Suite 1247 with David, 2 private investigators, and a recording device. David knocked. My father opened the door looking every one of his 71 years. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. I said alone. I said a lot of things too, I replied. Turns out we're both liars. He studied the group, then stepped aside. Fine, come in. The suite was elegant but sterile, like everything in my father's life. He poured himself a scotch without offering us anything. I have a proposition, he began. Drop the criminal charges. Allow supervised visitation. In exchange, I'll dissolve the custody suit and establish trust funds for Emma and Jaden, $2 million each. You're trying to buy my children. I'm trying to salvage something from this disaster. Your mother... He paused, taking a long drink. She's not well. Hasn't been for years. This obsession with fixing the children consumed her. I went along because I always go along. 50 years of marriage creates patterns. You're blaming Mom. You were on that video planning everything. I was trying to manage her obsession, channel it into something legal. I never wanted it to go this far. David stepped forward. Mr. Madison, this conversation is being recorded. Are you admitting to the conspiracy? My father laughed bitterly. Why not? My reputation is destroyed. My wife is in jail. My business partners have abandoned me. That foundation I announced, no one will take my money. I'm done, Mr. Washington. I just want to minimize the damage. The damage to your grandchildren or to yourself. He looked at me then, and for a moment I saw something almost human in his eyes. Did I ever tell you why I was so against your marriage to Marcus? Because you're racist. Because I was terrified. My whole life was built on fitting in, following rules, being what was expected. You threw all that away for love, and you were happy, happier than I'd ever seen you. It made everything I'd sacrificed seem pointless. So you tried to steal my children. Your mother convinced me they'd be better off, that we could give them advantages, opportunities, the right connections. I told myself it was for their own good, but watching that little girl stand up in court, she's just like you, fierce, uncompromising, sure of who she is in a way I never was. She's 8 years old and she's already braver than you've ever been. I know. He finished his scotch. The offer stands. Financial security for the children in exchange for this ending quietly. No deal, I said firmly. You're going to prison. Mom's going to prison. And Emma and Jaden will grow up knowing their parents protected them from people who claim to love them while trying to destroy who they are. He nodded slowly. I thought you'd say that. You always were stubborn. I learned from the best. As we left, my father called out, Keisha, for what it's worth, they're lucky to have you. Both of them. All of them. I didn't reply. His words meant nothing now. Back in the car, David was ecstatic. He admitted everything on tape. This is huge. But I felt empty. The man in that hotel room wasn't the titan of industry I'd grown up fearing and trying to please. He was just a hollow shell who'd chosen conformity over love his entire life and was only now realizing the cost. He never had evidence against me, Marcus said quietly. He was bluffing. I know, but I needed to see him to understand. And do you... No, I don't think I'll ever understand how parents can choose prejudice over their own children. but I understand that he's broken in ways that have nothing to do with us, and everything to do with the choices he made long before we came along. That night, I sat in Emma and Jaden's room watching them sleep. Tomorrow, a judge would decide their fate. Despite all our evidence, all our support, all our truth, it would come down to one person's interpretation of best interests. "We're going to win," Marcus whispered from the doorway. "We have to. And if we don't, then we keep fighting. Appeal. Take it to the Supreme Court if we have to. We never stop fighting for them." I thought about my father alone in his hotel room with his scotch and his regrets. That's what giving up looked like. That's what choosing fear over love led to. "We're going to win," I agreed. "Because we have something they'll never understand. We have each other." Tomorrow would bring the battle, but tonight we had peace. Tonight we had our children safe in their beds, dreaming of futures where they could be exactly who they were meant to be. And that was worth any fight. Thursday morning arrived with unseasonable rain, as if the weather itself was reflecting the gravity of the day. Emma and Jaden ate breakfast quietly, sensing the tension despite our attempts at normalcy. "Will we have to talk to the judge?" Emma asked, pushing her cereal around the bowl. "Maybe, sweetheart, but remember what we practiced. Just tell the truth." "The truth is, I want to stay with you forever," Jaden said matter-of-factly. "That's easy. If only it were that simple." We arrived at the courthouse to find it surrounded by media and supporters. Families from our group held signs, "Love not control," "Families come in all colors," "Children are not property." My parents' supporters were there too with their own messages. "Grandparents have rights," "Traditional values matter," "Save the children." "Save them from what?" Emma muttered, reading the signs. "From being loved." Inside the hallway buzzed with nervous energy. Maria hugged me tightly. "Whatever happens, you've already won. You've exposed them. You've saved hundreds of children." But not my own, not yet. Judge Harrison's courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more intimate. This wasn't a criminal trial with a jury, just a judge deciding the fate of our family. My parents sat at the opposite table, my mother out on bail for the hearing, both in conservative suits meant to project respectability. They didn't look at us. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Judge Patricia Harrison presiding." Judge Harrison was in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She'd reviewed thousands of pages of evidence, watched hours of video testimony, read the Guardian ad litem's report. Our fate was in her hands. "This case," she began, "it has garnered significant public attention. I want to be clear that my decision will be based solely on the best interests of the minor children, not on public opinion or political pressure." My parents' lead attorney, a polished man named Richard Blackstone, stood first. Despite everything, the arrests, the evidence, the exposed network, he painted a picture of concerned grandparents who'd made unfortunate choices out of love and desperation. "The criminal charges are still pending," he argued. "Innocent until proven guilty applies here. What we have are grandparents who, yes, made mistakes in their approach, but whose fundamental concern was the welfare of their grandchildren." He presented their case methodically. The concerning elements of our household, both parents working Jaden in extensive therapy, Emma struggling with identity confusion, according to their expert. The resources my parents could provide: private schools, unlimited educational opportunities, a more stable environment. "Stable," I whispered to David. "They call trying to kidnap children stable." "Let him talk," David whispered back. "He's hanging them with every word." Blackstone continued for an hour, painting us as well-meaning but overwhelmed parents who couldn't provide the advantages these children deserved. He glossed over the kidnapping attempt as a miscommunication and the falsified documents as overzealous advocacy. Then came their expert witnesses. Dr. Patricia Holloway, the psychologist who'd evaluated us without meeting us, testified via video link. She claimed our non-traditional family structure was inherently unstable, that Jaden needed more intensive intervention than we were providing, that Emma showed signs of distress from her confused racial identity. "Have you ever actually met the Harris family?" David asked on cross-examination. I reviewed extensive documentation. "That's a no. Have you ever spoken to Emma or Jaden? Have you ever observed them in their home environment?" "That wasn't necessary for my evaluation." "So you diagnosed an entire family based on cherry-picked photos and biased reports from grandparents who were actively planning to kidnap these children." "Objection," Blackstone called. "Sustained," Judge Harrison said, but her eyes remained on Dr. Holloway. "Doctor, on what specific evidence did you base your conclusion that these children were at risk?" Holloway fumbled through notes, citing things like Jaden's therapy schedule proof we were addressing his needs, Emma's advanced academics somehow a sign of pressure, and our modest lifestyle as if love required wealth. When our turn came, David was brilliant. He presented the video from Stonefield's office, the recordings my aunt had provided the evidence of the nationwide trafficking network. He brought in our own witnesses, teachers who praised our involvement, therapists who detailed the children's progress, neighbors who'd watched us build a loving home. Patricia Gonzalez, the guardian ad litem, gave powerful testimony. "In 20 years of this work, I've rarely seen a family as bonded as the Harrises. Emma and Jaden are thriving, confident, articulate, secure in their identities and their parents' love. The only trauma they've experienced came from their grandparents' actions." Then came the moment I dreaded and hoped for in equal measure. "Your Honor," David said, "Emma and Jaden Harris have asked to address the court." Judge Harrison considered, "This is highly unusual for children so young." "These are unusual circumstances, Your Honor. These children have shown remarkable maturity throughout this ordeal. They deserve to be heard." "I'll allow it, but I'll speak with them in chambers with only the guardian ad litem present." My heart broke as Emma and Jaden stood holding hands. Emma whispered something to her brother, and he nodded. They walked toward the judge's chambers with the dignity of children who'd learned too young that sometimes you have to fight for love. The 30 minutes they were gone felt like 30 years. Marcus held my hand so tightly I lost feeling in my fingers. My parents sat rigidly whispering with their attorneys. When the doors opened, Emma and Jaden emerged with tear-stained faces but heads held high. They walked directly to us, ignoring everyone else, and buried themselves in our arms. "We told her everything," Emma whispered, "about the suitcases and the plane tickets and how Grandma said we were broken. We told her we want to stay with you forever." Judge Harrison returned to the bench, her expression unreadable. The courtroom fell silent. "I've reviewed extensive evidence in this case," she began. "Criminal conspiracies, falsified documents, attempted kidnapping, a nationwide network of grandparents systematically stealing children from fit parents. It's one of the most disturbing cases I've encountered in 30 years on the bench." My parents' attorney started to stand, but she waved him down. "Mr. and Mrs. Madison, you came to this court seeking custody of your grandchildren. You claim their parents were unfit, their home unstable, their futures at risk. What I've found instead is that you pose the greatest risk to these children's well-being." My mother made a small sound, quickly muffled. "You viewed your grandchildren not as individuals to be cherished, but as projects to be fixed. You saw their biracial identity as a problem to be solved rather than a beautiful reflection of their heritage. You saw Jaden's autism as a defect to be hidden rather than a difference to be supported. You were willing to traumatize these children to force them into your narrow vision of acceptability." "Your Honor." Blackstone tried. "My clients acted out of genuine concern." "Your clients acted out of prejudice control and an appalling sense of entitlement. They participated in a criminal conspiracy that has destroyed hundreds of families. They showed no regard for these children's actual well-being, only for their own desires." She turned to us. "Mr. and Mrs. Harris, you're not perfect parents. No one is. But you love your children unconditionally. You support them completely. You've created a home where differences are celebrated, where identity is embraced, where love truly is the only requirement for family. I was crying now, Marcus too. Even David looked emotional. It is the order of this court that Robert and Barbara Madison's petition for custody is denied in its entirety. Furthermore, given the criminal charges pending and the clear danger they pose, the existing restraining order is made permanent. They are to have no contact with Emma and Jaden Harris until these children reach the age of majority and can decide for themselves whether to establish a relationship. No. My mother stood, her careful composure finally shattering. You can't do this. Those are my grandchildren. I have rights. You had rights, Judge Harrison said coldly. You forfeited them when you tried to steal these children. Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Madison out if she cannot control herself. But my mother wasn't done. She turned to us, her face twisted with rage, and something else, grief maybe, for the family she'd destroyed with her own hands. You've ruined them, she screamed. They could have been normal. They could have been somebody. Instead, they'll always be caught between worlds, never belonging anywhere. Emma stood up, my brave 8-year-old, facing down the grandmother who'd tried to erase her. I do belong somewhere. I belong with my family, my real family, the one that loves me exactly as I am. My mother's face crumpled. For just a moment, I saw not the monster who'd tried to steal my children, but the woman who'd raised me, who'd once sung me lullabies and kissed, scraped knees. The woman who'd let fear and prejudice poison her love until it became something destructive. Then the moment passed. The bailiffs led her out, my father following silently, and they were gone from our lives. Court is adjourned, Judge Harrison announced. Emma and Jaden, you were very brave today. Your parents are lucky to have you. We know, Jaden said seriously, making the judge smile despite herself. The courtroom erupted as soon as she left. Our support group surrounded us with hugs and tears. Reporters shouted questions. David was already fielding calls about appeals, but we all knew my parents were finished. Between the criminal charges and this ruling, they'd lost everything. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sun broke through the clouds as we emerged from the courthouse. Emma and Jaden between us, hands linked like an unbreakable chain. Are we safe now? Jaden asked. Yes, baby, we're safe. Forever. Forever and always. Reporters surrounded us, but I had eyes only for my children, my brave, brilliant, perfect children who'd stood up to hatred and chosen love. Mrs. Harris, how do you feel about the ruling? Someone shouted. I looked at my family, Marcus stalwart and steady, Emma fierce and proud, Jaden unique and wonderful, and found my voice. I feel grateful. Grateful for a judge who saw the truth. Grateful for a legal system that, despite its flaws, protected our children. Grateful for everyone who stood with us. But mostly, I'm grateful for these two amazing kids who taught us all that love doesn't need to look any particular way, it just needs to be real. What's next for your family? Marcus answered that one. Homework, piano practice, Fox documentaries, normal life, beautiful, chaotic, normal life. And helping other families, Emma added. Because there are more kids out there who need protecting from people who say they love them, but really just want to change them. What would you say to other families facing similar situations? Another reporter asked. Fight, I said simply. Fight for your children. Fight for your right to love as you choose. Fight against anyone who tells you your family is wrong because it doesn't match their picture. And remember, love wins. It's harder, it takes longer, but love wins. As we walked to our car, Emma tugged on my hand. Mommy, I know Grandma and Grandpa did bad things, but I still feel sad for them. Why's that, baby? Because they had us, all of us, and they threw us away for stupid reasons. They chose being mean over being family. That's the saddest thing I can think of. Out of the mouths of babes. That night, we had a celebration that was really more of a collapse. Pizza in front of the TV, everyone in pajamas by 6, emotional exhaustion settling over us like a weighted blanket. But we were together. We were safe. We were whole. The war was won, but battles remained. Criminal trials, civil lawsuits, therapy to help Emma and Jaden process their trauma, work to change laws and protect other families. But those were tomorrow's fights. Tonight I held my children and my husband and knew that we'd done the impossible. We'd stood against wealth and prejudice and systemic corruption, and we'd protected our family. Love had won, just like I'd promised it would. The criminal trial began 6 months later, on a cold November morning. The federal courthouse in downtown had become as familiar to me as my own home over the months of preparation. Emma and Jaden were in school, protected from the media circus we knew awaited us, while Marcus and I sat behind the prosecution table. My parents entered in shackles. The sight should have brought satisfaction. Instead, I felt only emptiness. These people who'd given me life had chosen hate over love, and now they'd face the consequences. The United States versus Robert Madison, Barbara Madison, Patricia Stonefield, and 37 co-conspirators read like a movie title, but it represented hundreds of destroyed families. Janet Morrison, the federal prosecutor, had built an airtight case. The evidence was overwhelming: financial records showing payments for children, emails discussing acquisition strategies, contracts with facilities that promised to reprogram kids. But it was the testimony that truly damned them. One by one, parents took the stand. Maria Rodriguez went first, describing 3 years of fighting to get Diego back, while her parents told everyone she'd abandoned him. James Chen broke down, talking about his daughter Lily's nightmares after 18 months in a facility. Sarah Williams showed pictures of her son before and after, a bright, happy autistic child transformed into a shell of himself by therapeutic intervention. But it was the children's testimony that destroyed any sympathy the jury might have felt for the grandparents. Alex Thompson, now 18, described years of torture disguised as therapy. They told me my parents didn't want me because I was gay. They said if I could just be normal, maybe someone would love me again. I tried to kill myself 3 times in that place. Diego Rodriguez, finally home, but still healing, testified via closed-circuit TV. They made me choose between being Mexican and being white. Said I had to pick one. When I said I was both, they put me in isolation for a week. Lily Chen spoke barely above a whisper. They said speaking Chinese was why I was confused. They punished me every time I remembered words my dad taught me. Now I can't remember any of them. They stole my father's language from me. When it came time for the defense, my parents' attorneys tried everything. They claimed mental health issues, manipulation by Stonefield, genuine belief they were helping. They painted my parents as victims of a predatory lawyer who'd exploited their concerns. But then the prosecution played the video from Stonefield's office, my parents calmly discussing how to eliminate Marcus and me from the children's lives. My mother saying Emma and Jaden would thank them someday for saving them from their defective parents. My father calculating exactly how much he was willing to pay to purchase his grandchildren like property. The jury deliberated for exactly 93 minutes. Guilty on all counts. My mother sobbed. My father stared straight ahead, his face granite. Stonefield looked shocked, as if she'd really believed her money and connections would save her. During victim impact statements, I stood before the court with photos of Emma and Jaden. "These are my children," I began. Emma, who dreams of being a scientist and changing the world. Jaden, who knows more about foxes than most zoologists and loves with his whole heart. They're perfect exactly as they are. Mixed-race, neurodivergent, completely themselves. I turned to my parents. You could have been part of their lives. You could have loved them as they are. Instead, you saw them as problems to be solved, mistakes to be corrected. You traumatized them because they didn't fit your narrow definition of acceptable. My voice grew stronger, but you failed. Emma and Jaden know who they are. They know they're loved. They know their worth isn't determined by their race or their neurology or anyone else's prejudices. You tried to steal our children, but all you did was show them how strong love really is. I looked at the other families in the gallery. Every child you stole, every family you destroyed, every life you shattered, we're all still here, still fighting, still loving. You lost the moment you chose control over compassion. The sentencing was swift. 25 years for Stonefield with no possibility of parole for 15, 18 years each for my parents. The facilities were shut down, their operators facing their own trials. Judges who'd taken bribes were removed from the bench and prosecuted. As they led my parents away, my mother looked back one last time. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and I saw something break in her, the realization, perhaps, of all she'd thrown away. Then she was gone, and I knew I'd never see her again. Outside the courthouse, families celebrated justice finally served. Media from around the world covered the verdict, but I felt no joy, only relief and exhaustion. "It's over," Marcus said, pulling me close. "The trial's over. The healing's just beginning." That evening, we told Emma and Jaden about the verdict in simple terms. Their grandparents had done bad things and would be in timeout for a very long time. "Will they say sorry?" Jaden asked. "I don't know, buddy. Sometimes people who hurt others never understand what they did wrong." Emma was thoughtful. "I hope someday they understand. Not for us, we're okay, but for them. It must be awful to have so much hate inside you that you can't see love when it's right in front of you." My wise, compassionate daughter. Despite everything they'd been through, both kids had emerged with their ability to love intact. That was the real victory. The next months brought a whirlwind of changes. Our story became a catalyst for legislative reform. Emma and Jaden's law passed in our state, then others strictly limiting grandparent custody claims and requiring extensive investigation of any allegations against fit parents. I testified before Congress about the need for federal oversight of troubled teen facilities. Marcus spoke at conferences about protecting neurodivergent children from those who would fix them. Emma and Jaden, with careful protection of their privacy, became symbols of resilience. Our support group evolved into a national organization, Families United Against Custody Trafficking. We provided legal resources, emotional support, and advocacy for families facing similar threats. The website Alex Thompson had created became a central hub for survivors to share their stories and find healing. 1 year after the verdict, we held our first national conference. 300 families attended, representing every configuration imaginable. Single parents, same-sex couples, interracial families, families with disabled children, all united by love and the determination to protect it. Maria Rodriguez gave the keynote with Diego by her side. "They tried to steal our children because we didn't match their picture of family. But look around this room. This is what family looks like. Beautiful in its diversity, strong in its love, unbreakable in its bonds." During a break, a woman approached me hesitantly. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with eyes that had seen too much. "Mrs. Harris, I'm Jennifer Walsh. I was at Whitman's facility for 3 years. My grandparents sent me there when I was 13 because I had a black boyfriend." My heart broke for her. Another child stolen, another life derailed by hate. "I aged out 2 years ago," she continued. "I've been trying to find my parents, but my grandparents told everyone they abandoned me. Your story gave me hope. Could your organization help?" "Absolutely," I hugged her tightly. "We'll find them. You're not alone anymore." By the conference's end, we'd connected 12 adult children with parents they'd been told were dead or had abandoned them. Watching those reunions, the tears, the apologies, the desperate hugs reminded me why this fight mattered. But the sweetest moment came at our own home. Emma had won her school's science fair with a project on genetic diversity. Jaden had been selected for an advanced program that celebrated neurodivergent learners. We were having a small celebration when Emma asked to make a toast. "To our family," she said, raising her juice glass. We're all different colors, and our brains work different ways, and some people think that's wrong. But I think it's like my science project diversity makes us stronger. We survived because we're different, not despite it. To being different, Jaden agreed solemnly, and to parents who love different. To love winning, Marcus added, his eyes suspiciously bright. To love winning, I echoed, looking at my beautiful, imperfect, triumphant family. The war was over. We'd exposed the network, changed laws, saved hundreds of children. My parents would spend their remaining years in prison, finally stopped from hurting anyone else. The facilities were closed. The corrupt judges removed the trafficking pipeline, destroyed. But most importantly, Emma and Jaden were safe. They knew they were loved exactly as they were. They understood that family meant choosing love over fear, acceptance over control, diversity over conformity. We'd won. Not just the legal battle, but the war for our children's souls. They would grow up free to be themselves, proud of all their heritage, confident in their worth. The trauma would fade, though never fully disappear, but it would be replaced by the knowledge that love, real love, unconditional love, that celebrates instead of controls, always wins in the end. As I tucked them in that night, Jaden asked his nightly question, "Are we safe?" "Yes, baby, we're safe. Forever. Forever and always." And finally, blessedly, it was true. 2 years had passed since the verdict. 2 years of healing, of building, of watching our children grow into their strength. Emma was 10 now, all legs and determination, her science projects growing more ambitious with each passing month. Jaden, 8 and thriving, had become an advocate for autistic children in his school, teaching his classmates about neurodiversity, with the confidence of someone who'd learned his difference was a gift, not a flaw. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was working from home. The number was blocked, but something made me answer. "Mrs. Harris." The voice was official, careful. "This is Warden Patricia Holmes from the Federal Correctional Institution. I'm calling about your mother, Barbara Madison." My stomach dropped. "Is she—" "She's alive, but she's very ill. Terminal cancer. The doctors give her perhaps 2 weeks. She's been asking to see you." I sat down heavily. 2 years of no contact, of moving forward, of building a life free from their poison. Now this. "I understand this is difficult," the warden continued. "You're under no obligation to come. But I wanted you to know in case you needed closure." After I hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. My mother was dying. The woman who'd sung me lullabies and tried to steal my children. The woman who'd taught me to read and told me my husband was beneath us. The woman who'd loved me conditionally and damaged me profoundly. "You okay?" Marcus found me still sitting there an hour later. I told him about the call. He sat beside me, solid and warm and real. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to ignore it, let her die, knowing she threw away her family for hate. Part of me—" I couldn't finish. "Needs to say goodbye. Needs to say something. I don't know what." We talked for hours, weighing safety against closure, anger against compassion. In the end, it was Emma who decided for me. She overheard us discussing it, and with the wisdom that still surprised me, said, "You should go, Mommy. Not for her, for you, so you don't wonder what if forever." 3 days later, I walked into the prison medical ward. The woman in the bed bore little resemblance to Barbara Madison's society matron. Cancer had ravaged her, reducing her to bones and regret. Her eyes, though, were still sharp when they found mine. "You came," she whispered. "I almost didn't." "I know, thank you." I sat in the visitor's chair, maintaining distance. We stared at each other across more than just space, across years of hurt chasms of misunderstanding, the wreckage of what had once been love. "I have so much to say." She began, then coughed a harsh sound that shook her whole body. "Not enough time." "Then say what matters." She closed her eyes. I was wrong. About everything. About Marcus, about the children, about what family means. I let fear destroy the only good thing I ever created you. Why, the question I'd carried for years. Why couldn't you just love them as they were? Because I was taught that different meant dangerous, that maintaining standards mattered more than happiness, that control was love. Tears leaked from her closed eyes. I was raised by parents who saw the world in rigid categories, and I never questioned it, never challenged it, just passed the poison on. Until it consumed you. Yes, that woman on the video planning to steal your babies, I watched that video every night. They showed it during rec time once. The other inmates, when they found out what I'd done, she shuddered. Even criminals hate people who hurt children. I felt no sympathy. She'd earned every moment of suffering. I have a box. She continued, gesturing weakly to the bedside table. Things I've written. Apologies I'll never get to deliver. Memories of you as a child before I ruined everything. Will you take it? Why, because someday, maybe when Emma and Jaden are older, they might want to know that their grandmother finally understood, that she died knowing she was wrong, that she loved them even if she was too broken to show it properly. You tried to erase them. You called Jaden defective. You wanted to steal Emma's identity. I know. God, I know. And I'll die knowing I traumatized children I should have protected. But maybe knowing their grandmother learned, changed even if too late. Maybe that might mean something someday. I took the box but made no promises. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of destroyed years between us. Your father, she said suddenly, he's different too. The trial broke something in him. He spends his time teaching financial literacy to other inmates trying to atone. He understands now what we threw away. Too little, too late. Yes, but Keisha, don't let our poison infect your children. Don't let our failure make them hard. They're beautiful as they are. Let them stay that way. They will. Not because of you, but despite you. She nodded, accepting the judgment. As I stood to leave, she reached out weakly. I know I have no right to ask, but could you tell me about them? Just a little. I dream about them sometimes, and they're always frozen as they were 2 years ago. I could have refused, should have refused, but something in her broken voice made me relent. Emma won the state science fair with a project on genetic diversity in plant adaptation. She used our family as inspiration, showing how variation makes species stronger. Jaden publishes a newsletter about foxes that has subscribers in 12 countries. He's teaching himself 3 languages because foxes live everywhere, and he wants to read about them in every language. My mother smiled through her tears, strong and brilliant and themselves, just like their mother. Just like themselves, that's enough. Yes, it is. I left then, carrying her box of regrets and apologies. She died 6 days later, my father permitted to attend the small prison funeral. He would serve another decade, his fortune gone to legal fees and restitution. His reputation destroyed, his legacy, one of hatred that failed. I didn't attend the funeral, but I did read the letters in the box alone in my office while my family slept. Pages and pages of remorse, of memories of a woman realizing too late that she'd chosen fear over love. One letter stood out, addressed to Emma and Jaden. My dear grandchildren, by the time you read this, if you ever do, I'll be gone. Good. The world is better without people who think love should have conditions. I spent my life believing lies about what mattered. I thought purity was more important than joy. I thought control was more important than connection. I thought my narrow world was the only right one. I was catastrophically wrong. You are perfect as you are. Mixed race isn't confusion, it's richness. Autism isn't defective, it's difference. Your parents aren't failures. They're heroes who protected you from people like me. I stole years we could have had together. I caused pain that can never be fully healed. I chose hate over love, and I'll die, knowing that was the worst choice I ever made. But you get to choose differently. You get to love freely, be yourselves, boldly change the world just by existing in it. Don't let anyone ever tell you you're wrong for being who you are. You're not wrong. I was. I'm sorry. It's not enough, but it's all I have left to give. The grandmother who finally learned to see. I burned the letter. Maybe someday I'd tell them their grandmother had found remorse at the end. Maybe not. They deserved to decide for themselves what her memory meant to them. The next morning, I found Emma and Jaden building an elaborate fort in the living room, their safe space, when the world felt uncertain. "Mom's been sad," I heard Jaden tell his sister. "We should do something nice for her." "Like what?" "Tell her we love her exactly as she is." "That's perfect," Emma agreed, "because she does the same for us." They emerged from their fort and ambushed me with hugs, declaring their love with the fierce certainty of children who'd learned young that love was precious powerful and worth protecting. "What brought this on?" I asked, holding them close. "You looked sad yesterday," Emma said. "We wanted you to remember that we're okay, we're happy, we're exactly where we belong." "No matter what happened before," Jaden added, "this is our family, our real family. Nothing can change that." My brilliant, resilient children. They'd survived attempted kidnapping, custody battles, and trauma that would have broken many adults. Yet here they were, offering comfort, choosing love, being exactly themselves. "You know what?" I said, pulling them closer. "You're absolutely right. This is our family. Our beautiful, different, perfectly imperfect family. And nothing, not grandparents, not judges, not anyone can change that." "Forever?" Jaden asked our old ritual. "Forever and always," Emma and I said together. That evening, I told Marcus about the visit, showed him the letters. We agreed to keep them until the children were adults, then let them decide what relationship, if any, they wanted with their grandparents' memory. "Do you regret going?" he asked. No. I needed to see that she finally understood what she'd lost, not for her sake, but for mine. To know that truth won even if it took dying for her to see it. "And your father will serve his time knowing he destroyed his family for prejudice. That's justice enough." Months passed. The Families United Against Custody Trafficking grew into an international organization. Laws changed. Facilities closed. Children came home. The work continued, would always continue because prejudice shapeshifts but never fully dies. But in our house, life went on beautifully normal. Emma's science projects, Jaden's Fox Facts, family dinners, homework battles, dance parties in the kitchen, all the glorious chaos of a family that had fought for its right to exist and won. On the anniversary of the verdict, we always did something special. This year, Emma suggested we visit other families from our support group, a reunion of sorts. Watching dozens of children play together, all colors, all configurations, all perfect in their difference, I felt the last of my anger dissolve. My parents had tried to steal our children because they couldn't see beauty in diversity. They'd failed. These children running and laughing and being gloriously themselves were proof that love wins. Different wins. Family in all its forms wins. "You did this," Maria said, standing beside me as our children played. "You stood up first. You gave us all courage." We all did this. Every parent who fought, every child who survived, every person who said, "This is wrong," and demanded better. As the sun set on our gathering, I watched Emma teaching younger kids about genetics, while Jaden led an impromptu Fox documentary screening. My children using their interests to connect with others, building bridges where their grandparents had tried to build walls. This was our legacy, not the pain, not the trial, not the years of fighting. This children free to be themselves, families free to love as they chose a world a little bit safer for difference. My mother died believing she'd failed. She had, but not in the way she feared. She'd failed to break us. Failed to steal our children's identities, failed to make us ashamed of who we were. In every way that mattered, we'd won, and we'd keep winning one loved child at a time, forever and always. 1 year after my mother's death, spring arrived with unusual warmth and the promise of new beginnings. Emma, now 11, had evolved into a fierce advocate for multiracial identity, starting a diversity club at her school that had grown to 40 members. Jaden, 9, had been selected to present his Fox research at a youth science symposium, the youngest presenter in the event's history. "Mom, I need to interview you," Emma announced, one evening, tablet in hand and determination in her eyes. "What for?" "I'm writing an essay for the National Diversity Conference about families that survived attempts to erase them. I want to use our story." I set down my coffee carefully. We'd always been open with the kids about what happened, but they'd never wanted to dive deep into the details before. "Are you sure you're ready for that? It's a heavy topic." "I'm ready. I need to understand it to help other kids who might be going through the same thing." So we talked. For hours, I answered her questions about why her grandparents had acted as they did, about the network of families we'd helped expose, about the strength it took to stand against your own blood for your children's sake. "Were you scared?" she asked. "Terrified, every single day until the judge made her ruling. But you didn't let it show. Sometimes being brave means being scared and doing what's right anyway." She typed furiously, then looked up with those eyes that saw too much. "Do you think they ever really loved us? Or were we always just wrong to them?" "The hardest question. I think they loved the idea of you, the grandchildren they imagined you could be, but they never took the time to love who you actually are. That was their loss, not yours." That night, Marcus found me crying in our bedroom, overwhelmed by the conversation. "She's too young to carry this story," I said. "She's strong enough. Look at her. She wants to use our pain to help others. She's taking something terrible and making it meaningful. That's healing, Keisha." He was right. Over the following weeks, Emma interviewed every member of our support group willing to talk. She compiled stories of survival of families who'd fought and won, of children who'd maintained their identities despite attempts to erase them. Her essay, "Love is Not Control: How Families Survive Identity-Based Custody Theft," won first place at the conference. But more importantly, it sparked a youth movement. Children who'd been through similar experiences started connecting, sharing, healing together. Jaden, meanwhile, channeled his experience differently. He created a comic series called The Fox Family, about a diverse group of foxes who had to protect their den from wolves who thought only red foxes were real foxes. "It's metaphorical," he explained seriously, showing me his latest panels, "but also scientifically accurate about fox behavior." The comic went viral after his teacher shared it online. Soon we were getting messages from parents using it to explain discrimination and acceptance to their children. A publisher reached out wanting to turn it into a book series. "What do you think?" I asked him. "It's a big decision." "Will it help kids understand that different is okay?" "Probably." "Then yes, but I want to donate some money to help families still fighting." My heart burst with pride. Both my children had taken their trauma and transformed it into purpose. The publishing deal led to unexpected opportunities. Schools invited us to speak about our experience. Media outlets wanted updates on the family that had exposed the grandparent trafficking network. We were selective, always prioritizing the kids' privacy and well-being, but when it felt right, we shared our story. One speaking engagement changed everything. We were at a conference for child welfare attorneys when a young woman approached me afterward. "Mrs. Harris, I'm Rebecca Thompson, Alex Thompson's sister." I remembered Alex, the brave teenager who'd first exposed what happened inside the facilities. "How are they?" "Thriving. They're in law school now, planning to become a children's rights attorney. But that's not why I'm here." She took a deep breath. "I work for the Department of Justice now. We're creating a new task force specifically focused on identity-based custody theft. We want you to be an advisor." "Me." "You and the other parents from your group. You understand this issue better than anyone. You've lived it. We need your expertise to make sure this never happens again." I accepted immediately. The work was hard, reviewing cases, proposing policy changes, training investigators to recognize the signs of custody trafficking, but it was also healing. Every family we helped felt like reclaiming a piece of what had been stolen from us. Marcus threw himself into advocacy too, focusing on protecting neurodivergent children in custody disputes. He worked with autism organizations to create guidelines for judges, ensuring they understood that different neurologies weren't deficits to be fixed. Our home became a hub for the movement, strategy meetings in the dining room, support groups in the living room, always with Emma and Jaden at the center, reminding us why the work mattered. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Jaden came to me with an unusual request. "Mom, I want to visit Grandpa in prison." I nearly dropped the pot I was holding. "Why, baby?" "I've been thinking about forgiveness, not for him, but for me. I don't want to carry anger forever. I want to tell him that I'm okay, that he didn't break me. Maybe that would help both of us." That's a very mature thought. Let me discuss it with Dad and think about it, okay? The debate went on for weeks. Marcus was initially against it, worried about re-traumatizing Jaden. Our therapist helped us work through the options. In the end, we decided to let Jaden make the choice with support. The visit was arranged for a Saturday morning. I went with him while Marcus stayed home with Emma, who had no interest in seeing the man who'd tried to erase her. Robert Madison looked decades older than his 75 years. Prison had broken his body, if not his spirit. When he saw Jaden, something flickered in his eyes, shame perhaps, or recognition of what he'd thrown away. "Hello, Jaden," he said quietly. "You've grown." "I'm 9 now. I study foxes and speak 3 languages, and have friends who like me exactly as I am." My father, I still struggled to think of him that way, nodded slowly. "Your mother told me. I'm glad." "I came to tell you something." Jaden continued, his voice steady despite his stimming hands. "You tried to change me because you thought I was broken. But I'm not broken. I'm autistic. That's not wrong, it's just different. And different is okay." "I know that now." "Do you really?" My father looked at his grandson. Really looked at him, and I saw the moment he truly understood what he'd almost destroyed. Yes. I spent my whole life believing lies about what mattered. I taught those lies to your grandmother, and we nearly destroyed everything good because of them. I'm sorry, Jaden. It's not enough, but I'm sorry. "Okay," Jaden said simply. "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to be angry anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean you get to be my grandpa. You lost that right when you tried to steal us." "I understand." "Good. I hope you teach other people in here that different doesn't mean bad. Maybe that can be your way of fixing some of the hurt you caused." As we left, I marveled at my son's wisdom, 9 years old and already understanding truths that had taken me decades to learn. "You okay?" I asked as we drove home. "Yes, I said what I needed to say. Now I can let it go." That night, our family gathered for our weekly movie night. As I looked around at my children cuddled between Marcus and me, I realized how far we'd come. From a family under siege to a family that had not just survived, but transformed trauma into purpose. "I love you guys," Emma said suddenly apropos of nothing. "Our weird, wonderful, exactly right family." "Even when I info dump about foxes," Jaden asked. "Especially then." "Even when I get obsessed with science projects." "Especially then." "Even when we make you attend boring conferences and meetings," I added. "Well," she pretended to consider. "Yeah, even then, because you're doing it to help other families be as happy as ours." Marcus pulled us all closer. "You know what I love most about our family? We're exactly who we're supposed to be. Not who anyone else wanted us to be, but who we are. Forever." Jaden asked our old ritual taking on new meaning. "Forever and always," we all said together. The movie played, but I wasn't watching. I was thinking about the journey that had brought us here, the pain that had transformed into purpose, the fear that had become fuel for change, the attempt to destroy us that had only made us stronger. My parents had been wrong about so many things, but their greatest error was believing that love meant control, that family meant conformity, that children were possessions to be molded rather than individuals to be celebrated. Real love. The love that filled our home meant accepting each other completely. It meant Emma's brilliant mind and mixed heritage were gifts, not problems. It meant Jaden's autism was part of who he was, not something to be cured. It meant Marcus and I could build a family that looked nothing like what we'd grown up with and have it be absolutely perfect. The movement we'd helped start had saved hundreds of families. Laws had changed. Attitudes were shifting. Children were safer because we'd refused to let our story end in tragedy. But the greatest victory was smaller, quieter. It was Emma confidently explaining her identity to anyone who asked. It was Jaden flapping his hands with joy without shame. It was Marcus and I building a love that crossed every boundary others had tried to put between us. It was this moment all of us together whole and healed and happy. We'd won. Not just the court case or the criminal trial, but the deeper battle for our children's souls. They knew who they were. They knew they were loved. They knew they were exactly right, exactly as they were. And that victory was worth every moment of pain it had taken to achieve it. 5 years had passed since that terrible night when my parents tried to steal our children. 5 years of healing, growing, and transforming our pain into purpose. Emma was now 13, a poised young woman who spoke at conferences with the confidence of someone twice her age. Jaden, 11, had published his first book in the Fox Family series and was working on his second while maintaining his research on actual fox behavior. I stood before Congress on a crisp October morning prepared to testify about the Protecting Families from Fraudulent Custody Claims Act legislation our movement had spent 3 years crafting. My name is Keisha Harris. I began looking out at the assembled representatives. 5 years ago, my parents tried to kidnap my children because they couldn't accept that families come in all colors, all configurations, all beautiful forms of love. Today, I stand here not as a victim, but as a voice for the thousands of families who've faced similar attacks. I spoke for 20 minutes laying out the systematic nature of identity-based custody theft, the network we'd exposed the children still recovering from facilities that tried to erase who they were. When I finished the committee chair, a grandmother herself had tears in her eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Harris. Your courage has saved countless families. We'll be voting on this bill next week, and I'm confident it will pass unanimously. Outside the Capitol, Marcus waited with Emma and Jaden. They'd insisted on coming, wanting to witness this moment of their story becoming part of changing America. How'd it go? Emma asked, though her grin suggested she already knew. I think we're going to win this one. Another victory for the Fox family, Jaden declared, making us all laugh. That evening, back in our hotel, my phone rang with an unexpected call. Keisha, this is Aunt Linda. My mother's sister, who'd provided crucial evidence during the trial. We'd stayed in touch, but calls were rare. I wanted you to know, she said softly, your father passed away this morning. Heart attack in prison. I sat down, slowly processing the news. My father was dead. The man who'd taught me to ride a bike and tried to steal my children. The man who'd walked me down the aisle and plotted to destroy my marriage. How do you feel? Marcus asked after I'd shared the news. I don't know. Empty, relieved, sad for the relationship we never got to have. All of that sounds normal. I told the kids the next morning over breakfast. Their reactions were as different as they were. Emma nodded thoughtfully. He made his choices. He faced the consequences. It's sad, but it's not our sadness to carry. Jaden was quieter. I'm glad I got to tell him I forgave him. Now he can't hurt anyone else, and maybe he found peace at the end. You're both pretty amazing, you know that, I said, marveling at their maturity. We learned from the best, Emma replied, then shifted topics with the ease of youth. So when do we find out about the vote? The vote came 3 days later. The Protecting Families from Fraudulent Custody Claims Act passed the House 435-0. When it passed the Senate 2 weeks later, we were in the gallery to witness it. The president signed it into law a month after that with our family and dozens of others who'd fought for this moment standing behind her. This law, she said at the signing ceremony, ensures that no family will be torn apart simply for being different, that love, not prejudice, will guide our custody decisions, that children will be protected from those who would erase their identities, even especially when those people share their blood. Afterward, at the reception, families who'd been helped by our organization surrounded us with gratitude. Children reunited with parents, families allowed to exist without fear, lives rebuilt from the ashes of trauma. You did this, Maria Rodriguez said, her son Diego, now a thriving teenager, beside her. You turned your pain into power. We all did, I corrected. Every family who stood up, spoke out, refused to let hate win. As we flew home that night, Jaden fell asleep against my shoulder while Emma wrote in her journal, probably planning her next advocacy campaign. Marcus held my hand across the aisle, and I felt a profound sense of completion. Not ending our work would continue as long as families face discrimination, but completion of this chapter. The people who'd tried to destroy us were gone. The network they'd used was dismantled. Laws now protected families like ours. Our children were safe, strong, and using their voices to protect others. Penny for your thoughts? Marcus said. Just thinking about how Grandma and Grandpa wanted to give our kids advantages. They never understood that the greatest advantage we could give them was the freedom to be themselves. And look at them now, changing the world just by existing. Think they'll forgive us for all the meetings we dragged them to. He laughed softly. I think they'll thank us for showing them how to fight for what matters. A week later, we held our annual gathering for families affected by custody trafficking. This year was different, a celebration not just of survival, but of victory. The law had passed. Protections were in place. The work would continue, but the landscape had fundamentally changed. Emma gave the keynote speech standing before 200 people with the poise of a seasoned activist. 5 years ago, my grandparents looked at me and saw a problem to be solved. My skin wasn't light enough. My brother's brain worked differently. Our family didn't match their picture of perfect. They tried to erase us, reshape us, steal us from parents whose only crime was loving us exactly as we are. She paused, scanning the crowd of families who'd lived similar nightmares. But here's what they never understood. We're not problems. We're possibilities. Every mixed-race child carries histories in their skin. Every neurodivergent person sees the world in ways that can change it. Every family that doesn't fit the mold breaks it open for others to breathe. The room erupted in applause, but Emma wasn't done. They tried to steal us because they were afraid. Afraid of change, afraid of difference, afraid of a world where love matters more than conformity. But we're not afraid. We're proud. We're strong, and we're not going anywhere. As she spoke, I saw my mother's determination in her jaw, my father's intelligence in her eyes, but transformed by love into something beautiful instead of destructive. She'd taken the best of her heritage and left the poison behind. To every kid out there who's been told they're wrong for being who they are, you're not wrong. You're exactly right. Your family is real, your identity is valid, and your love is powerful. Don't let anyone, not grandparents, not judges, not anyone tell you otherwise. Jaden joined her on stage for the conclusion, and together my children stood as living proof that love wins. Our mom always asks us a question, Jaden said, taking the microphone. She asks, are we safe? And we always answer, forever and always. Today, because of all of you, more families can say that too. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Families hugged, cried, celebrated. Children who'd been through facilities met others who understood. Parents who'd fought connected with those still fighting. The community we'd built from trauma had become something beautiful. That night, as we drove home, Emma asked a question that stopped my heart. Mom, do you think Grandma and Grandpa would be proud of what we've built? I thought carefully before answering. I think the people they could have been, the grandparents who might have chosen love over fear, those people would be amazed. But the people they actually were, they'd probably still think we were wrong. Their loss, Jaden said simply, we turned their hate into help for others. That's the best revenge. Not revenge, I corrected gently. Justice, transformation, hope. As we pulled into our driveway, I saw our house with fresh eyes. The walls that had protected us during our darkest days, the rooms where we'd held strategy meetings and support groups, the kitchen where we'd celebrated victories and mourned losses, the bedrooms where our children had grown into advocates and artists. This house had witnessed our family's near destruction and complete rebuilding. Now it stood as proof that love could survive anything. "I love our home," Emma said as if reading my thoughts. "Me too," Jaden agreed. "It's perfect for our weird, wonderful family." "The weirdest and most wonderful," Marcus confirmed, gathering us all for a hug on the front porch. As we entered our home, I thought about everyone who'd been part of our journey, the families who'd stood with us, the lawyers who'd fought for us, the legislators who'd listened, the children who'd survived and thrived despite attempts to erase them. Change doesn't happen in courtrooms alone. It happens in living rooms where families refuse to be broken, in classrooms where children learn that different is beautiful, in communities that choose love over fear. My parents had given me life, but they'd also taught me how not to live. From their ashes, we'd built something better, a family rooted in unconditional love, a movement that protected others, a legacy of acceptance that would outlast us all. "Mom," Emma said as we settled in for the evening, "I'm writing a new essay. Want to hear the title?" "Always. Thank you for trying to steal us how my grandparents' hate created a movement of love." I laughed through sudden tears. "That's perfect, baby." I thought so too. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the best things we do for others, right? Right. As I tucked Jaden in that night, a ritual he was almost too old for but still secretly loved, he asked our question one more time. "Are we safe?" But this time I had a different answer. "You know what I think the better question is? Are we free?" His eyes lit up with understanding. To be ourselves, to love who we want to help others. Exactly. "Then yes," he said firmly, "we're free, forever and always." Forever and always. I agreed, kissing his forehead. Later, curled up with Marcus, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain had been real. The trauma had left scars, but we'd refused to let it define us. Instead, we'd let it refine us into better parents, stronger advocates, fiercer protectors of love in all its forms. My parents were gone, their legacy of hate crumbled to dust. But our legacy, Emma's voice ringing out for equality, Jaden's stories, teaching acceptance, the laws that now protected families, the children reunited with parents, the love that flourished where fear once ruled, that would endure. We'd won. Not just our battle, but the war against those who would use children as weapons in their culture wars. We'd proved that love is stronger than hate, that diversity is strength, that families are defined by how they care for each other, not by who approves of them. And most importantly, we'd shown our children that when someone tries to dim your light, you don't shrink, you shine brighter and light the way for others. As sleep finally claimed me, I whispered a final thank you to the universe. Thank you for giving me the strength to fight. Thank you for Marcus's unwavering support. Thank you for Emma's fierce spirit and Jaden's gentle wisdom. Thank you for every family who stood with us. And yes, in the strangest way, thank you to my parents. Their attempt to destroy us had instead forged us into something unbreakable. Their hate had birthed a movement of love. Their failure had become our triumph. We were the Harris family, different, proud, united, and free. Forever and always. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed our journey from a family under attack to a family that helped change laws and save lives. But I want to leave you with something more than our story. If you're facing someone who says your family is wrong, whether it's grandparents, extended family, or anyone else know this, your love is valid. Your family is real. You have the right to raise your children according to your values, not someone else's prejudice. If you see a family being targeted for being different, speak up. Support them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. And if you're a grandparent reading this, wondering where the line is between concern and control, ask yourself, do I love this child for who they are or for who I want them to be? The answer will guide you. Love doesn't need to look any particular way. It just needs to be real, supportive, and unconditional. Thank you for joining our journey. May your own family, however it looks, whoever it includes, be blessed with the freedom to love without limits. With hope and determination, Keisha Harris. As we close this chapter of our story, I have a question for you. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who didn't accept your choices or your children for who they are? How did you find the strength to protect your family's right to exist exactly as you are? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another family needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart or opened your eyes to the reality of custody trafficking, please consider sharing it. Every share helps spread awareness and might reach a family who needs to know they're not alone. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories of families who refuse to let prejudice win. Together, we're building a world where every family is free to love without fear. Thank you for reading, for caring, and for believing that love comes in all colors, all configurations, and all beautiful forms. Remember, different is not wrong. Different is wonderful. Stay strong, stay proud, and always protect your right to love freely. Until next time, keep choosing love over fear.